The night had a strange weight to it, as if something unseen pressed against the walls of the old cabin and waited for the right moment to breathe. Michael Turner felt that weight the moment he stepped inside. It settled on his shoulders the way regret settled on a man who knew he had come back to a place he should have forgotten long ago. Dust swirled across the wooden floorboards, twisting in shapes that looked almost deliberate, like faint echoes of footsteps trying to retrace their way out. The cabin had not changed since the last time he was here, yet something about it felt unfamiliar, as though the house itself had been rearranging its insides in his absence. Michael closed the door behind him, and the sound echoed like a final decision that could not be undone. A cold draft slid across the room, brushing against his neck and causing the tiny hairs to rise, as if a ghostly hand had traced a line down his spine. He told himself it was just the wind, but the cabin was buried deep in the forest, where wind rarely reached the ground. Ever since he was a child, he had known this house held something different, something wrong, something that made his bones heavy and his instincts cautious. The kind of sensation people described in late-night stories tagged with chilling scares. But he had returned anyway, chasing the memory of his missing brother Daniel, who vanished through the strange door at the back of this cabin 20 years ago. Michael took a slow breath, tasting the bitter smell of old wood and damp air. The cabin's silence pressed against his ears like a thick fog. A single lamp still stood on the small table in the corner, the same lamp they had used during childhood summers when their parents brought them to the forest to escape the noise of the city. He crossed the room and ran his fingers along its dusty surface. The lamp flickered once, as if remembering him. Michael hesitated before turning it on. When the bulb finally glowed, its weak yellow light peeled back the darkness, revealing the narrow hallway where the strange door waited like a patient witness. His chest tightened. He had not seen that door in 2 decades, yet it had haunted his dreams every year since Daniel vanished. No matter how far Michael ran from the memory, the door always found its way back into his nightmares, its black frame etched in impossible angles. He walked toward the hallway, ears pricking at the faint creaks coming from the walls, as though the house was listening. The wooden boards groaned beneath each step, as if protesting his return. The hallway stretched longer than he remembered, the shadows gathering thickly along the edges. When he reached the end, he stopped in front of the door. It was still there, the same faded green paint, the same rust-coated hinge, the same handle worn down by years of fear and curiosity. But something was different. The door seemed to breathe, not literally, but the surface pulsed faintly, like the wood was expanding and contracting in slow, subtle movements. Michael blinked, unsure if it was his eyes or his memories playing tricks on him. He reached out and touched the door. The wood felt colder than metal, a strange cold that sank into his skin and spread up his arm like numbing poison. Michael pulled his hand back sharply. His heart hammered against his ribs. All these years he thought maybe the stories he told himself were exaggerated memories. created by trauma. But now he saw the truth. Something unnatural had always been inside this cabin, and it had never left. Michael whispered Daniel's name under his breath, testing the sound in the heavy air. The house reacted. A soft echo drifted through the hallway, repeating the name with a faint distortion, as if the walls themselves spoke with a distant voice. Goosebumps crawled across his arms. His mind told him to turn around, walk out, and burn the cabin to the ground. But something deeper, something older than fear, urged him to turn the handle and face whatever lay behind the door. For 20 years he had lived with the guilt of not following Daniel that night. He had been too afraid, too shocked by how the door had swallowed Daniel in a single impossible moment. The memory replayed in his mind without mercy. Daniel opening the door, a blinding flash of white, a sound like tearing fabric. Daniel vanishing without a scream, and the door closing silently, as if nothing had happened. Michael swallowed hard, steadying his breath. He knew the door should not lead anywhere. Behind it should be nothing but a solid wooden wall. Their father had told them it was an old storage extension that was sealed shut years before they were born. But Daniel had insisted the door felt wrong, and he had been right. Tonight Michael needed answers, even if the answers destroyed him. He turned the handle slowly. A soft click resonated through the hallway like a heartbeat. The air thickened. Then, with a long groan, the door opened. Light poured out. Not warm light, but a cold, sterile glow that reminded Michael of hospital corridors and empty morgues. The space beyond the doorway was not a sealed wall. It was a room he had never seen before. A room that could not possibly fit inside the cabin. The walls were peeling in strange spirals. The ceiling curved slightly downward, as though the room had grown from something alive. The floor was covered in thin black dust that stirred in delicate patterns like faint whispers moving along the surface. Michael stepped inside, compelled by a force he could not name. The moment he crossed the threshold, the door slammed behind him with a violence that shook the floor. He spun around and grabbed the handle, but it no longer moved. The wood felt warm now, almost pulsing under his palm like a heartbeat. Panic flared across his chest. He banged on the door, shouting for help even though he knew no one was within miles of the cabin. The house swallowed his voice. No echo, no response. He turned away from the door and scanned the room, breathing hard. Something shifted in the corner. A shape, a figure, small at first, crouched, its outline trembling. Michael froze. The room darkened around the edges as if the walls were exhaling shadows. The crouched figure slowly lifted its head. Two hollow eyes stared back at him with a familiarity that stabbed through his spine. Even through the distortion of years and terror, Michael recognized that face. Daniel. But the thing standing in front of him was not the brother he remembered. It was something shaped from him, something stretched by time and impossibility, something not quite human anymore. And when it smiled, the air cracked around Michael like shattering glass. The doorway had never led nowhere. It led here, to whatever had taken Daniel, and now it had taken Michael too. Michael staggered backward until his spine hit the cold wall behind him. The figure in the center of the room remained perfectly still, as if frozen between breaths. Its face was undeniably Daniel's, but distorted in ways that made Michael's stomach twist. The cheekbones were sharper, the jaw slightly elongated, the skin stretched too tightly as if it were fitted over a frame not meant for a human shape. The hollow eyes did not blink. They absorbed light rather than reflected it. Daniel had vanished 20 years ago, but what stood before Michael was something that had lived far longer in a place without time or mercy. Michael forced himself to breathe. The air tasted metallic, like blood and rust mingled together. The room hummed faintly, a low vibration that seemed to rise from beneath the floorboards, sinking into his bones. He lifted his hand slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal. "Daniel," he whispered, voice trembling, but the thing shaped like his brother did not respond. Instead, it tilted its head, an unnatural angle that cracked softly as though bones rearranged inside. Then it stepped forward. Michael pressed himself harder against the wall, unable to tear his eyes from the approaching figure. The shadows bent around Daniel's warped form, stretching like tendrils that followed his movements. Every step he took left faint impressions in the black dust on the floor, the patterns twisting like symbols Michael could not understand. A faint cold radiated from Daniel as if his body had been carved from ice and moonlight. When he came close enough that Michael could feel the unnatural cold against his skin, he finally stopped. For a moment, neither of them moved. The silence swelled. Then Daniel opened his mouth. A sound slipped out, but it was not a voice. It was the same tearing sound Michael remembered from childhood, the sound that marked the exact moment Daniel disappeared behind the impossible door. It sliced through the air like ripping fabric and echoed inside Michael's skull. The room responded instantly. The ceiling shivered, pulsing like the underside of a living organism. The peeling walls twisted inward as though drawn toward Daniel's presence. Shadows thickened, forming dark streaks that crept across the floor toward Michael's feet. He stepped sideways, almost stumbling as panic clawed its way up his throat. This place was alive, reacting to Daniel, transforming around him. That meant the door had not merely taken Daniel, it had reshaped him, remade him, claimed him. But why bring Michael here now? What did it want? Daniel took another step and reached out his hand. The skin along his fingers split slightly, revealing thin lines of pale light beneath, like cracks in porcelain. A chill breeze swirled around Michael, pressing against his chest with invisible force. Deep inside him, something stirred, a forgotten sense of loyalty, a brotherly instinct that fought against the fear crushing him. Despite the terror, Michael lifted his trembling hand toward Daniel's outstretched fingers. As soon as their fingertips touched, the room erupted in a violent surge of cold. Michael gasped. Visions flooded his mind. Forests bending unnaturally, a sky swirling in reverse, the cabin splitting open like a mouth, a white void stretching endlessly, Daniel falling into it, a figure made of shadow pulling him deeper. Michael felt himself drown in the memories that were not his, but belonged to the creature Daniel had become. His knees buckled and he collapsed to the floor, clutching his head as the visions tore through him. When they finally faded, he lay panting, sweat chilling against his skin. Daniel stood above him, head tilted again, watching with hollow patience. Michael forced himself to push upright, using the wall for support. "What are you trying to show me?" he whispered, though he did not know if Daniel could understand. The creature's lip twitched, almost like an attempt at speech. Then its entire body convulsed. Bones cracked, skin tightened, a horrible tremor ran through its limbs. Daniel let out a strangled sound, half human, half something ancient. The shadows around him grew denser. Michael backed away as the distorted figure shook violently, as if fighting something inside itself. The room trembled. Dust swirled in frantic spirals. Daniel dropped to his knees, claws scraping the floor as he pressed his hands against his skull. Michael hesitated for only a moment before rushing forward and grabbing Daniel's shoulders. His touch burned with cold pain, but he held on. Daniel's hollow eyes flicked up, and for a split second, something human emerged in them. Michael's breath hitched. It was the first time in 20 years he had seen any trace of the brother he lost, but the moment collapsed as quickly as it appeared. Daniel's body froze, then snapped upright with impossible speed. He threw his head back and unleashed a sound that shook the entire room. The tearing noise intensified, warping the air. Cracks spread across the walls, glowing faintly from within. The floor vibrated. The ceiling bulged downward like something massive pressed from above. Michael stumbled back as a dark fissure opened behind Daniel, stretching upward like a shadow tearing through fabric. A cold light leaked through, illuminating Daniel's twisted silhouette. Michael felt the force pulling him toward the fissure, dragging at his clothes and skin as though invisible hands clawed at him. He fought against it, gripping a bent metal pipe on the floor to anchor himself. Daniel's body jerked violently as the fissure widened, the edges rippling like liquid darkness. Michael realized with growing horror that the room was collapsing into the void behind Daniel. This place was not a room at all. It was a threshold, a waiting mouth. Daniel turned toward Michael, face trembling with conflicting expressions. Emotion, rage, pleading, hunger. The creature lunged forward, grabbing Michael by the wrist with icy fingers that felt like iron talons. Michael cried out, trying to pull away, but Daniel's grip only tightened. His hollow eyes locked onto Michael's with desperate intensity. For a moment, Michael could not tell whether Daniel was trying to pull him into the void or push him away from it. His brother's body shook violently as the fissure expanded, its cold light casting shifting shadows across Daniel's warped features. The fissure roared like wind, siphoned through a canyon. Objects in the room lifted into the air, spiraling toward the void. dust stung Michael's eyes. His grip on the pipe began to slip. The cold air shredded his breath, and his lungs burned as he struggled. Daniel leaned closer, forcing their faces inches apart. Michael stared into the hollow eyes and whispered his brother's name one more time. Something flickered behind Daniel's expression. Recognition, pain, regret. Then Daniel shoved him violently backward. Michael flew across the room and hit the far wall hard enough to knock the air from his lungs. When he looked up, Daniel was standing at the edge of the fissure, body trembling, shadows twisting around him like living smoke. With one final glance toward Michael, Daniel stepped into the void and disappeared. The fissure sealed shut instantly with a sound like a massive heartbeat. The room fell silent. Then the door behind Michael slowly creaked open on its own, as if inviting him to leave. His pulse hammered in his ears. The black dust settled. The walls stopped trembling, but the cold that lingered in the room felt permanent, as if part of Daniel's presence had remained behind. Michael pushed himself to his feet, bruised and shaking. He stepped toward the open door, unsure if it was freedom or another trap waiting for him. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty: Daniel was still alive somewhere, and whatever had taken him was not done with Michael. Michael stepped through the open doorway with the caution of a man who knew the house was no longer just wood and memory, but something alive that breathed with intentions he could not yet see. The hallway he returned to looked the same as before. Same dim yellow glow from the old lamp. Same worn boards beneath his feet, same heavy stillness pressing against the air. But now the silence felt different. It was not passive, it was observant. It listened as he moved. It waited as though the cabin itself wanted to know what he would do next. Michael steadied himself and placed his hand against the wall for support. The wood felt warm, almost too warm, the opposite of the freezing cold inside the impossible room. That contrast unsettled him more than the void had. Cold belonged to something inhuman, but warmth meant something else entirely. It meant presence. He walked down the hallway, each step echoing like a heartbeat. Michael reached the main room and stopped at the center. There he listened, not with his ears, but with the part of him that had been tuned by fear since childhood. Something moved above him, a faint scuttling sound, like nails dragging across wood. Michael looked up. The ceiling remained still, but the noise continued, shifting from one corner to another before disappearing entirely. He swallowed hard. The cabin was reacting to what had happened with Daniel. It had always been connected to the strange door, but now that the fissure had opened and closed, the entire structure seemed to pulse with the remnant energy of something ancient and hungry. Michael needed answers. He had spent 20 years haunted by the memory of the door, by the moment Daniel vanished, by the endless guilt of not following him. But now he had seen the truth. Daniel was not dead. He was changed, reshaped, but alive, somewhere beyond the threshold of the cabin. If Michael wanted any chance of retrieving him, he would have to understand what this house truly was. He walked toward the kitchen where the old wooden table stood, covered in dust. When he brushed his hand across it, the dust shifted in swirling patterns. The shapes were familiar. They resembled the symbols he had seen forming in the black dust under Daniel's feet in the other room. Michael felt a chill race up his spine. These patterns were not random. They were messages, but whether they were warnings or invitations, he could not yet tell. He took a deep breath and grabbed a flashlight from his backpack. The beam cut through the darkness with a sharp white glow. Michael aimed it at the walls, scanning for anything unusual. On the first pass, he saw nothing but faded wood. On the second pass, he saw something he wished he had not. The shadows on the wall were wrong. They lagged slightly behind the movement of the flashlight beam, as if slow to respond. It reminded him of a reflection in a funhouse mirror, where the world moved just half a second late. That unnatural delay filled him with heavy dread. Shadows were not supposed to behave independently, but these did. Michael stepped forward cautiously, raising the flashlight. As he approached the wall, his own shadow stretched unnaturally long, sliding up the wooden surface in a slow ripple. It slithered higher even when his arm was still. Michael froze. The shadow crawled upward like a living creature, contorting into a jagged shape that did not match his body at all. He stumbled backward, and the shadow snapped back into place as if nothing had happened. Michael stood completely still, breathing sharply, heart pounding. His voice quivered as he whispered his brother's name into the thickened air. The house did not respond with an echo this time. Instead, the temperature dropped rapidly. Frost began forming along the edges of the old window, as though an unseen breath pressed against the glass from the outside. Michael turned toward the door that led outside the cabin. Maybe the forest would give him air to think. But when he stepped forward, a sudden thud came from outside. Not a small sound, a heavy one. Something large brushed against the cabin wall. Another thud followed, and another. Something was circling the house. Michael gripped the flashlight tighter, its trembling beam revealing the vibrating surface of the door. Whatever was outside was too heavy to be an animal, too purposeful to be wind. Michael approached the door slowly. The moment his hand touched the handle, the cabin exhaled a long groan. The wood cracked slightly beneath his fingers. He pushed the door open. The forest outside was pitch black. The trees were tall silhouettes rising like ancient guardians. Fog wound through the branches like pale serpents searching for warmth. Michael stepped onto the porch, the boards creaking under his weight. He watched the tree line for any movement. At first he saw nothing. Then he noticed footprints, large footprints, deep impressions in the soil surrounding the cabin. They circled the structure in a slow, deliberate loop. Michael crouched to inspect them. The prints were human-like, but too large. The toes elongated, the heel unnaturally narrow. Michael recognized them instantly. They matched the footprints Daniel had left in the black dust. His brother had been outside. But why? Why circle the cabin instead of entering? Why leave tracks instead of revealing himself? The questions spiraled in Michael's mind. like a tightening noose. He scanned the forest again. A faint movement flickered between the trees. Something dark, something tall. It moved with unnatural smoothness, like a shadow gliding across water. Michael lifted the flashlight and aimed the beam toward it. The figure halted instantly. The light landed on empty space. But Michael could feel the eyes watching him. A heavy weight pressed against his chest, constricting his breath. He backed toward the cabin slowly. The moment he reached the doorframe, a loud crack split through the forest. A branch snapped violently as though crushed under immense force. Then silence. Michael stepped backward inside the cabin and shut the door with a trembling hand. He turned the lock, though he doubted it would stop something like the creature he had seen. The warmth inside the house wrapped around him like a fever. The shadows thickened along the corners. Michael realized he was trapped between two dangers: the forest outside and the cabin inside, both connected to the same impossible realm that had taken Daniel. He wiped the sweat from his forehead, trying to think. He needed a plan. He needed logic. But the cabin did not want him to think. It wanted him afraid. The lamp flickered. The air pulsed. Something scraped against the attic floor above his head. Michael tightened his jaw. He would not cower. Not anymore. He grabbed the flashlight and walked toward the staircase leading to the attic. The sound stopped the moment he placed his foot on the first step. He waited, breath held, then it resumed, slower this time, as though whatever lurked above was aware of him. Michael climbed the stairs, one creaking step at a time. The air grew colder the higher he went. When he reached the top, he hesitated before placing his hand on the attic door. The wood felt alive beneath his palm, not warm this time, throbbing. Michael took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The attic was dark except for a faint glow in the far corner. Something pulsed there rhythmically, like a heartbeat wrapped in layers of shadow. Michael took a step inside. The attic floor groaned. The glow shimmered. As he moved closer, he realized the pulsing object was not an object at all. It was a door, another one, smaller, breathing slowly in the darkness. The same impossible glow seeped from its cracks, the same pale cold Daniel carried. Michael stopped in front of it. His voice trembled as he whispered into the darkness, "You want me to follow him?" The door pulsed once, and then it began to open. The attic door opened with a slow groan, stretching the sound into a long, trembling note that vibrated through Michael's bones. The glow spilling from within was colder than any light he had seen before, a pale radiance that seemed to come from no physical source. It cast strange shadows across the attic floor, shadows that curled like smoke, yet held the weight of solid matter. Michael hesitated at the threshold, the air thinning as he approached. Each breath felt sharp and metallic, as if inhaling fragments of ice. His pulse hammered relentlessly, but he forced himself forward, because he knew this door, unnatural as it was, held the next piece of the truth, and truth was the only thing that could lead him back to Daniel. Inside the small glowing chamber beyond the door, the air shifted immediately. The temperature dropped so fast that Michael felt the moisture on his skin crystallize. The light within the chamber pulsed in rhythmic waves, matching the slow beat of something unseen. Michael stepped across the threshold, and the door behind him creaked shut with a soft thud. The sudden enclosure sent a jolt of panic through him. The walls of the chamber were oddly shaped. They curved inward, smooth and seamless, resembling the interior of a rib cage sculpted from bleached bone. The pale glow emanated from thin veins embedded within the walls, veins that pulsed faintly as if carrying some form of cold, luminous blood. Michael raised his flashlight, but the beam bent unnaturally inside the chamber, curved as if refracted through liquid air. It revealed a pathway ahead, a narrow tunnel leading deeper into the impossible space. The walls shimmered with frost. The floor was covered in a thin layer of swirling dust that shifted with a life of its own, forming symbols similar to those he had seen earlier. Michael knelt, touching the swirling patterns. The dust reacted to his fingers, spiraling upward briefly like tiny spirits rising to greet him before falling back into formation. His heart tightened. These were messages, or warnings, or both. Michael stood and followed the path, his footsteps muffled, as though the ground absorbed sound intentionally. Each step took him further from the safety of the cabin and deeper into something ancient, something that had been here long before humans built structures or named their fears. The tunnel narrowed slightly before opening into a circular chamber. At the center stood a pedestal carved from the same strange bone-like material as the walls. On top of it rested an object that glowed with a harsh white intensity. Michael approached cautiously, recognizing the sharp rhythm of the light. It matched Daniel's pulse when the creature form trembled earlier. The object was a fragment, a shard, thin as glass yet shaped like a twisted piece of metal. Its surface rippled like liquid, reflecting distorted images of Michael's face as he drew closer. When he reached out and touched it, the shard vibrated violently. Pain shot up his arm like a bolt of electricity. He staggered back. The shard hovered an inch above the pedestal now, trembling. The air crackled. The chamber trembled around him. Suddenly, visions erupted behind Michael's eyes. He saw flashes of Daniel falling into the impossible void years ago. Flashes of the creature that had dragged him deeper. Flashes of this place expanding, shifting, evolving into a realm that fed on fractured realities. And then Michael saw Daniel himself, not the creature he had encountered earlier, but the boy he remembered, standing at the doorway on the night he disappeared, reaching for Michael's hand, fear in his eyes, and something else. A silent plea. Michael felt his throat tighten. The visions shifted. Now Daniel stood inside this very chamber, older, distorted, torn between dimensions. A thin line of luminous energy connected him to the shard. This shard was part of him, a fragment of whatever had reshaped his body and mind. The vision stopped abruptly. The shard suddenly shot upward toward the ceiling, spinning rapidly, carving bright arcs of light into the air. Then it halted, suspended, pointed directly at Michael. He stepped back as the chamber vibrated harder. Frost cracked along the walls. The veins of glowing light pulsed rapidly, as though the chamber itself were struggling to contain the energy. The shard emitted a low humming sound, a familiar one, the same tearing resonance that had swallowed Daniel the night he vanished. Michael whispered his brother's name into the roaring chamber, and the shard reacted instantly. It flew toward him with terrifying speed. He ducked, the shard slicing through the air and embedding itself into the wall behind him. A crack formed where it landed, a glowing fissure spreading like a spider web of pale light. Michael watched in horror as the crack grew larger, the chamber wall bulging outward. Something pressed from behind, something massive, something that moved with an eerie, fluid grace. Michael backed away, but the chamber doors sealed shut behind him. Panic tightened his chest. The fissure widened. A cold mist spilled into the room. Through the glowing crack, Michael saw movement. A large shape, shifting and stirring, pressed against the other side. It had the outline of a humanoid form, but distorted into something far too tall and thin. The shadow leaned closer. A long, clawed hand pushed through the crack, bending the bone-like wall as if it were soft clay. The hand was wrapped in layers of writhing shadow that moved like smoke trapped in a glass jar. It reached for Michael. He stumbled backward, tripping over the pedestal. The hand stretched further, fingers lengthening unnaturally, curling toward him with hunger. The chamber shook violently. The veins in the walls pulsed faster and faster until they flashed like strobe lights. The fissure continued expanding, revealing more of the creature behind it. Its face pressed against the crack next, hollow eyes forming from pure shadow, a long, twisted mouth opening slowly. Michael scrambled to his feet and lunged for the shard still embedded in the wall. He grabbed it with both hands, ignoring the burning cold that seared his palms. With a desperate cry, he ripped the shard free. The fissure reacted instantly, shuddering violently. The creature roared without sound, a vibration so deep that it rattled Michael's ribs. The energy in the room whipped into a frenzy. Michael held the shard tightly, unsure if it would save him or destroy him. The creature lunged forward. Michael raised the shard like a blade. A burst of white light exploded through the chamber. The creature recoiled, its shadow form fracturing. The fissure sealed itself rapidly, pulling the creature back into the void until only silence remained. Michael dropped to his knees, gasping for breath. The shard dimmed in his hands. The chamber steadied. Slowly, the attic door behind him creaked open again, as if releasing him. Michael looked at the shard and felt a grim clarity settle over him. This was a piece of Daniel, a part of whatever had claimed him, and now it belonged to Michael. He stood, gripping the shard tightly. If the house wanted him to follow Daniel, then he would, no matter where the next door led. Michael descended the attic staircase with the glowing shard clenched tightly in his hand. its cold surface thumping faintly like a weakened heartbeat. Every step he took felt heavier than the last. The cabin reacted to the shard's presence, the wooden walls creaking with low groans, the shadows shifting as though retreating from the cold light leaking between his fingers. It was as if the house recognized the fragment he carried, as if it could smell the otherworldly energy Daniel had been remade from. The air grew thicker while Michael moved down the hallway. He felt the house breathing again, inhaling sharply each time he passed a doorway, and exhaling with low vibrations that traveled through the floorboards. This place was alive, alert, conscious, and now that Michael carried a piece of Daniel, the cabin watched him with a new intention. He entered the main room where dust swirled in slow, hypnotic spirals. At first, Michael assumed it was stirred by his footsteps, but the patterns traced deliberate paths, circling around him as though studying him. The shard pulsed again, brighter this time, reacting to something hidden. Michael raised it higher. The cold glow illuminated the wooden walls, revealing faint markings that had not been visible before. Long, jagged lines carved directly into the wood, crisscrossing in shapes resembling ribs of a great skeletal beast. These carvings stretched across the length of the room, twisting into symbols he recognized from the shard's chamber. The cabin had not been built around something ancient. It was part of something ancient. A limb, a fragment, a manifestation of a realm that existed between realities. The temperature dropped another degree and his breath turned to mist. Michael felt a presence behind him and spun around quickly, holding the shard like a blade. Nothing stood in the doorway, nothing moved, yet the sensation lingered, pressing down on him like a cold hand settling on his shoulder. The house whispered faintly, a sound so soft it was almost indistinguishable from the creaking boards. But Michael heard it, a distant hum, the same tone he heard when Daniel opened the door 20 years ago, a sound that seemed to burrow into the mind and pull something deep from memory. Michael gripped the shard tighter and walked toward the back of the cabin. The hallway stretched longer than before, impossibly long, the walls narrowing slightly as though the house reshaped itself around him. The lamp at the end flickered erratically, casting a wash of unstable shadows that crawled across the floor. Michael stopped halfway down the hall and raised the shard. The glow illuminated the walls, revealing dark stains that bled downward in long trails. They looked like handprints, smudged, dragged, some small, some impossibly large. Michael's throat tightened. These were not old markings. They pulsed faintly with energy that matched the shard. Daniel had touched these walls, or something that carried a part of him had. A sudden vibration shook the hallway, knocking dust loose from the ceiling. Michael stumbled against the wall. The shard flared brighter, reacting violently. A low roar grew beneath the floorboards, the sound rising and falling in waves. It sounded like the breathing of something massive, slumbering underneath the cabin. Michael braced himself. The floorboards bent upward slightly, as if something pushed from below. Then the hallway lights went out in a single crushing silence. Only the shard remained lit. Its glow carved cold lines across the walls and illuminated the far end of the hallway, where the impossible door stood once more, except it had changed. Its edges twisted, bending inward like the petals of a dying flower. The wood rippled softly, responding to Michael's presence. The door's handle glowed faintly, matching the shard's pulse. Michael approached slowly, the air tightening with each step. His palm itched. The shard vibrated violently. The door opened on its own. Cold air exploded outward, sweeping Michael's hair back and numbing his face instantly. The room beyond the door was different now. No longer the curved chamber with the pedestal. Instead, it resembled a large corridor made of bone-white material with black veins snaking across it. The corridor extended farther than any physical space in the cabin could hold. Michael stepped inside. As he crossed the threshold, the door slammed behind him again. Michael held the shard forward to light the path. The further he walked, the more the corridor reacted to him. The walls pulsed with a cold glow. The floor rippled beneath his feet like soft muscle squeezed under pressure. Shadows moved ahead of him, darting like skittering creatures just out of reach. His pulse hammered. He expected to hear the tearing sound again at any moment. After several minutes of walking, the corridor opened into a massive chamber. Michael froze the moment he entered. The chamber stretched upward in impossible height, filled with towering pillars shaped like vertebrae. They spiraled into darkness, each one carved with symbols glowing faintly. At the center of the chamber lay an object that made Michael's blood run cold. A cocoon, tall as a human, wrapped tightly in layers of dark, translucent material. Inside it, a figure struggled weakly. Michael felt his heart stop. Daniel, the form inside the cocoon, twitched as though reacting to Michael's presence. His distorted hand pressed against the inside of the membrane, stretching it outward. His face appeared for a moment behind the dark veil. Hollow eyes, sunken cheeks, and then something else. Recognition. The cocoon pulsed violently, as if Daniel was trying to break free. But the more it moved, the more the walls around the chamber tightened, pulsing in rhythm with the cocoon's struggle. Michael stepped forward in desperation. The shard in his hand pulsed rapidly, vibrating with the same rhythm as the cocoon. They were connected. Michael raised the shard, and the cocoon reacted instantly, trembling violently. A deep rumbling filled the chamber. The pillars shook. Dust rained from above. Michael felt a painful realization strike him. The shard wasn't just a piece of Daniel, it was the key. The cocoon began to split, thin cracks forming like spider webs across its surface. Cold mist seeped out, coiling around Michael's legs. He lifted the shard higher, unsure whether he was saving his brother or releasing something worse. The chamber roared with soundless vibrations. Shadows twisted violently around the pillars. The ground shook. Daniel's face pressed against the membrane again, and this time he mouthed something silently. "Help me!" The cocoon ripped open. A burst of blinding cold light surged outward, knocking Michael off his feet. He hit the ground hard, but clutched the shard instinctively. When the light faded, He looked up, breath shaking. Something stood where the cocoon had been. Daniel, but not the creature from before. Not the brother he remembered. Something in between. Something emerging. Something wrong. His hollow eyes fixed on Michael, and he whispered without sound, "It followed you." The chamber behind them cracked open as a towering shadow rose. The towering shadow rose behind Daniel with a slow, dreadful inevitability, pulling itself free from the cracked wall like an ancient god awakening from centuries of confinement. Its form was not solid, but made of rippling darkness, shifting and folding into shapes that defied any familiar anatomy. The creature's edges dissolved into smoke and reformed in the same breath, giving the impression that it was trying to choose a shape but could never fully decide. Michael's pulse thundered in his ears as he pushed himself onto his knees, the shard trembling violently in his hand. Daniel stood only a few feet away, his figure half human, half something reshaped by the realm, his hollow eyes locked onto Michael's with a pleading intensity, as though he were holding on to the last fragile pieces of who he had once been. The shadow creature leaned forward, its immense presence warping the air around it. A low vibration rolled through the chamber and rattled the pillars like a monstrous heartbeat spreading through stone. Michael felt the force press against his ribcage, squeezing the air from his lungs. The shadow extended an arm made of smoke and bone, its fingers impossibly long. As it reached for Daniel, the ground beneath them pulsed, responding to the creature's hunger. Daniel stumbled backward, his form flickering between solid and phantom. Michael surged to his feet, gripping the shard so tightly that the cold sliced into his palm. The shard reacted to Daniel's fear, pulsing faster, brighter, vibrating with a resonance that felt alive. The creature lunged forward, and its massive hand passed through Daniel's torso, as though he were partially intangible. Daniel screamed without sound, his body flickering violently like a light forced to stutter. Michael felt something deep and instinctive ignite in him, a protective instinct that outweighed terror. He rushed toward Daniel just as the creature prepared to strike again. The shard flashed with a cold burst of light. The creature recoiled, its arm dissolving at the edges, its form rippled with agitation, like smoke thrown into violent wind. Daniel collapsed to the ground, trembling, barely stable in his fragile shape. Michael knelt beside him and placed a hand gently against what remained of his shoulder. The coldness seeping from Daniel was intense, almost numbing, but beneath that chill, Michael felt a faint pulse, a flicker of humanity still anchored inside. Daniel turned his hollow eyes toward the shard in Michael's hand, then toward the creature towering above them. His form shook violently, as if something inside him pulled in two opposite directions. Michael steadied him, whispering his name through clenched teeth, but Daniel's shape distorted further. The ground trembled, the pillars groaned under the impossible pressure radiating from the creature. The creature extended its form again, this time stretching across the room to block the exit entirely. Dark tendrils spread along the walls, covering the symbols etched into the bone pillars. The chamber darkened except for the shard's glow, which fought desperately against the creature's consuming presence. Michael felt the shard heating in his palm, reacting to the entity, to the realm, to Daniel's broken form. It was not merely a piece of the realm. It was a key, a weapon, a beacon. He raised it again instinctively, and the creature unleashed a roar that vibrated without sound, a deep resonance that tore into Michael's mind like sharpened glass. Michael pressed a hand against his skull, forcing himself to stay upright as the chamber warped around him. The pillars bent, the ceiling shuddered, the walls rippled as though liquefying. The creature lunged forward, its entire mass descending upon them like a living void. Without thinking, Michael thrust the shard at the creature. A violent pulse of energy erupted from the shard, exploding outward like a shockwave of cold light. The creature's entire form disintegrated for a brief moment before reforming into a more monstrous shape. Its eyes, if they were eyes at all, opened as pulsing voids, staring directly at Michael, reflecting a hunger older than language. Daniel crawled toward Michael, clutching at the ground with trembling hands. His voiceless mouth formed words that the realm swallowed before they could escape. Michael grabbed his arm and pulled him upright. Daniel's distorted body flickered with desperate urgency, as though he were trying to tell Michael something vital. The shard pulsed again, responding to Daniel's presence, growing brighter until the entire chamber glowed with a harsh, cold radiance. The creature recoiled, forced backward by the shard's intensity. But the chamber began to collapse. The pillars cracked, the ceiling splintered. Strange bone fragments fell from above, dissolving into dust before they hit the ground. Daniel pointed toward the far wall where another fissure formed. A glowing crack expanded slowly, releasing waves of cold mist. Michael felt a powerful pull coming from it, the same pull he remembered from the night Daniel vanished. A doorway, another impossible passage. Daniel stepped toward it, but his body flickered violently, pieces of his form dissolving into shadow. He looked back at Michael, his hollow eyes filled with urgency and grief. Michael rushed to him, helping him stay stable as the ground shook beneath their feet. The creature rose behind them, its form expanding like a shadow storm filling the chamber. Dark tendrils whipped across the walls, tearing into the bone material, exposing more glowing cracks beneath. The entire realm was reacting to the presence of the shard, or to Michael, or to Daniel. Michael could not tell which. The fissure expanded further, forming a doorway framed by twisting ribs of pale bone. Daniel moved toward it with unsteady steps, dragging his weakened body closer to escape. Michael followed, but the creature's roar shattered the space in front of them, throwing both men backward. Michael crashed onto the ground. The shard flew from his hand and landed several feet away, spinning wildly. The cold glow dimmed as it rolled, finally settling in a pool of shimmering dust. The creature surged forward with terrifying speed. It grabbed Daniel in a massive tendril of shadow and lifted him from the floor. Daniel's body convulsed, flickering between human and inhuman shapes. Michael scrambled toward the shard, his fingers brushing the cold surface. As soon as he touched it, the shard flared with violent intensity. The chamber shuddered. The creature whipped jerked its head toward Michael, recognizing the threat. It slammed a tendril onto the floor, sending shockwaves across the chamber that knocked Michael sideways. He struggled onto his knees and raised the shard again. Cold energy poured through his veins. The shard was no longer a relic. It was alive. Michael pointed it at the creature holding Daniel. Light erupted from it, slicing through the chamber in a beam so bright it carved shadows from existence. The creature howled silently, the tendril holding Daniel dissolving. Daniel fell, his fragile form collapsing beside Michael. The creature recoiled, its mass shrinking as the shard's force overpowered it, but not destroyed. Not yet. Daniel grabbed Michael's arm, his fingers trembling. His hollow eyes met Michael's with a clarity that had not been there before. For the first time since the night he vanished, Michael recognized his brother inside that broken face. Daniel mouthed one more silent phrase. "Go!" The fissure behind them expanded suddenly, the cold mist swirling violently. Michael wrapped an arm around Daniel and forced their bodies toward the crack. The creature lunged forward, filling the chamber in one final stretch. Its massive hand slammed down as Michael and Daniel crossed the threshold. The doorway snapped shut, and everything went white. The white light swallowed everything. It was not like the brightness of a flashlight or the warmth of the sun. It was a total void of color and shape, a blinding emptiness that stripped the world down to its rawest form. Michael felt as if he were suspended in a weightless ocean made of frost and silence. His limbs drifted without resistance. His thoughts echoed endlessly inside his skull. Time stretched, thinning until it became meaningless. For a moment, he wondered if he had died, if both he and Daniel had crossed into something that was not a place at all, but the absence of every place that had ever existed. Cold seeped into him, a cold that did not come from temperature, but from the crushing realization that he no longer felt the ground beneath his feet. Then sound returned. A low ringing, thin at first, like the trembling edge of glass. It grew into a deep hum that vibrated through the emptiness. The white void began to pulse faintly. With each pulse, shapes emerged like faint silhouettes underwater. First, the outline of a wall, then the curve of a ceiling, then the trembling form of a floor taking shape beneath Michael's knees. He gasped sharply as the world solidified around him with a violent jolt. The cold vanished. The pressure shifted. He collapsed onto solid ground, coughing as air rushed back into his lungs. Daniel lay beside him, trembling uncontrollably, his form flickering as though the transition between realms had stretched the fragile boundary that held him together. Michael pushed himself upright and scanned the environment. They were no longer in the bone chamber, nor the cabin, nor the forest. They were in a place that looked familiar but wrong. A place that resembled the cabin's living room, yet twisted, as though reconstructed from memory rather than reality. The walls were made of wooden planks, but the wood pulsed with faint veins of pale light. The furniture was arranged just as he remembered from childhood, but each object felt hollow, Too smooth, too deliberate. The entire room had the uncanny feeling of a stage set created by something that had seen the cabin only in fragments, then tried to rebuild it from incomplete understanding. Michael helped Daniel sit upright. His brother shivered violently, his skin flickering like static. Michael gripped his shoulders firmly. Daniel's hollow eyes stared into him with a mixture of confusion and fear. Michael whispered his name, hoping some piece of humanity remained strong enough to hear him. Daniel blinked slowly, and his form stabilized for a moment. A quiet pulse rippled across the room, like the heartbeat of the realm itself responding to Daniel's flicker of awareness. The floor beneath them trembled. A distant noise echoed from somewhere deeper in the structure. A scraping sound, followed by another. Something moved in the walls, not walking, sliding, dragging. The sound slithered from one corner to the next, circling them. The fake cabin warped subtly, the walls bending inward as though listening. Michael pushed Daniel behind him and gripped the shard tighter. Its dim glow provided the only true light in the room. The fake cabin lights flickered in unnatural intervals, responding to some rhythm Michael could not decode. He stood slowly, helping Daniel lean against the wall. The wall pulsed beneath Daniel's weight, making his form ripple. Michael stepped into the center of the room, slowly turning, trying to pinpoint the source of the movement. The scraping grew louder. Then the walls parted, not like wood splitting, more like flesh peeling open. A seam spread across the far wall, revealing the darkness behind it. Michael felt his heart freeze. Something enormous pressed through the opening. A long limb, pale and bone-like, slid into the room. Then another. The creature that emerged was not the same shadow entity that had attacked them previously. This one was more defined, more solid, taller than the ceiling, yet bending its spine grotesquely to fit through the opening. Its form resembled a twisted skeletal figure wrapped in shifting darkness, with elongated limbs that dragged across the floor. Its face had no eyes, only deep hollows that pulsed with faint white light. Its jaw hung open slightly as if breathing, though no air moved. Michael could not tell if the creature was hunting them or simply observing, but when its head slowly tilted toward him, he felt the same pressure in his chest that he had felt in the bone chamber, a pressure that whispered directly into his mind, not words, a feeling, hunger. Daniel let out a weak, trembling breath. The creature snapped its head toward him instantly. Michael's instincts surged. Without thinking, he raised the shard toward the skeletal figure. The shard's dim glow flared violently, reacting to the creature's presence. The creature recoiled, its form shaking, the darkness around it twisting into frantic spirals. The seam in the wall pulsed as if the structure itself were in pain. The creature slammed one elongated hand onto the floor, its fingers splaying out like claws made of bone and shadow. The ground cracked beneath the impact. A shockwave rippled through the room, knocking Michael backward. He rolled to his feet and pointed the shard again. The glow brightened, pushing the creature back a second time, but the shard was draining. He could feel it. The cold pulsed weaker, the glow thinned. Daniel reached for Michael desperately, his trembling hand brushing Michael's arm. His mouth formed shapes again, silent words swallowed by the realm. Michael grabbed his hand and pulled him closer. Daniel's flickers intensified, his form dissolving into shadow for a moment before snapping back. The pressure in the room shifted. The creature screamed without sound, its form shaking violently as the seams in the walls widened. The realm wanted Daniel, needed him, and it would tear reality apart to reclaim what had been taken. Michael lifted Daniel into his arms with sheer adrenaline and ran toward the opposite wall. The realm responded instantly. The walls began shifting, twisting, forming corridors that stretched and bent like living intestines. The floor tilted, trying to throw them off balance. Lights pulsed in rapid flashes. Michael sprinted through the maze-like structure, the shard glowing just enough to guide his path. Behind him, the creature scraped its massive limbs rapidly, accelerating with disturbing speed. Its bone claws tore through the shifting walls, pulling its massive form closer. Michael ducked through a narrowing passage where the walls squeezed inward like tightening muscles. Daniel convulsed in his arms, his flickering growing worse. Michael tightened his grip. He refused to lose him again. The passage opened into a larger chamber. At the center of it stood a door, not a cabin door, not a bone door, a door shaped like a perfect rectangle of black glass, motionless, silent, waiting. The shard pulsed when Michael stepped closer, as if recognizing the structure. The scraping behind them grew louder. Michael turned. The creature burst into the chamber, its massive form filling the entire height of the space. Its hollow face twisted toward Daniel. Michael ran. He reached the black glass door and pressed the shard against it. A thin crack of white light split through the glass instantly. The crack widened, spreading into a glowing outline. The door dissolved, revealing a swirling void beyond. Michael stepped into it with Daniel in his arms as the creature lunged. The void swallowed them whole. The void swallowed Michael and Daniel with a force that felt like being dragged through freezing water. The swirling darkness churned around them, pulling at their limbs, twisting their sense of direction until Michael could no longer tell if they were falling, rising, or suspended in some impossible space where gravity and time had no meaning. Daniel's flickering form pulsed weakly in his arms, every convulsion sending sharp jolts through Michael's chest. He held tighter, refusing to let the realm tear Daniel from him again. The cold deepened, compressing around their bodies like an iron vice. Michael gasped for air that felt too thin, too distant. The shard in his hand glowed faintly, struggling to maintain its light against the crushing dark. Then the void shifted. A tremor rippled through the swirling darkness, followed by a violent jolt that twisted the entire space around them. Michael felt the ground slam into his knees. He collapsed forward, gripping Daniel tightly as the world reassembled itself in fractured pieces. Shapes emerged first, then color, then texture. When the void settled, Michael found himself kneeling on cold stone inside a vast structure, unlike anything he had seen in the realm before. The chamber was massive, stretching endlessly in every direction. The ceiling arched high above, disappearing into a swirling haze that flickered with dim pulses of pale light. Tall pillars, twisted and skeletal, lined the room in infinite rows. They looked like the ribs of a titan buried beneath the world, each one carved with symbols that pulsed like slow heartbeats. Michael struggled to rise. The floor beneath him felt strangely warm, pulsing in a rhythm that did not match his own heartbeat. It felt like standing on the living skin of a sleeping creature. He shuddered and pulled Daniel closer. His brother's form had stabilized slightly, but only barely. Daniel's eyes flickered open, hollow and trembling, staring at the towering pillars as though recognizing something ancient buried deep in the stone. Michael brushed a trembling hand through Daniel's hair. The coldness in his brother's skin seeped into him like frost. He whispered Daniel's name softly, afraid of what might answer if he spoke any louder. A distant sound echoed through the chamber, a rumbling growl, low, relentless. Moving, Michael rose to his feet. He clutched the shard, its dim light flickering like a dying candle. Shadows slithered between the pillars, not small ones, massive shapes moving with predatory patience. The rumbling grew louder, closer. The pillars trembled. Dust drifted from the ceiling in slow, drifting spirals. Something enormous was approaching. Michael looked around desperately, searching for an exit, but the chamber stretched endlessly in every direction, shifting subtly whenever he blinked, as though the room reshaped itself behind his back. He took a step forward. The floor rippled like disturbed water. Daniel convulsed in his arms, a low groan escaping his lips. The shard pulsed suddenly, reacting to Daniel's pain, and the chamber reacted to the shard. A deep pulse vibrated through the space. The pillars brightened. The symbols carved into them glowed sharply. The shifting shadows between the pillars froze. Silence fell with the weight of a falling mountain. Michael held his breath. The chamber was listening, watching, waiting. Then a voice spoke, not in words, in pressure. The air thickened into a crushing weight that pressed against Michael's skull and carved itself into his thoughts. Images flashed through his mind in violent bursts. A towering presence buried beneath the realm, a colossal entity whose limbs stretched through every chamber, every corridor, every door of the dimension he was trapped inside. The realm was not a place. It was a body, and the creature inside the bone chamber was only a fragment of it. A limb, a shadow, a small piece of something far older. Michael staggered as the revelation pierced through his senses. The presence beneath the chamber pulsed again. This time, the pressure focused on Daniel, whose body spasmed violently. Michael tightened his grip, refusing to let the presence tear Daniel away. The shard flared briefly, pushing back against the crushing force. The presence recoiled with a tremor that shook the entire chamber. The shadows between the pillars suddenly moved. Dozens of massive forms slithered out, emerging into the faint glow of the symbols. They resembled towering silhouettes made of swirling smoke, each one shaped like a distorted humanoid figure with elongated limbs and hollow, glowing sockets for eyes. They moved silently yet with terrifying purpose, each step causing the floor to pulse beneath Michael's feet. He backed away slowly, clutching Daniel tightly. The figures surrounded them in a tightening circle. Michael raised the shard. Its cold light flickered weakly. The figures paused, studying the shard with cautious recognition. The closest one leaned forward, its face inches from Michael. Its hollow sockets stared into him with the gravity of a collapsing star. Michael felt the presence behind the figure, something deeper, something older, something aware. The figure reached a hand toward Daniel. Michael stepped back instinctively. The circle tightened. Daniel's body flickered violently, as if reacting to their presence. Michael felt his brother slipping, his form dissolving again, like smoke trying to break free from his bones. Michael shouted silently in desperation and raised the shard toward the nearest figure. The shard pulsed sharply, brighter than before. A cold shockwave burst outward, forcing the figures to recoil. The floor trembled. The chamber reacted violently. A deep roar erupted from beneath the stone, shaking the chamber so intensely that several pillars cracked. The symbols etched into them flashed in rapid pulses. Light surged through the room, carving glowing veins across the pillars and the ceiling. The shadow figures scattered backward, vanishing into the haze. Then the floor split open beneath Michael's feet. He fell still, clutching Daniel into a swirling chasm filled with cold, spiraling fog. The shard glowed wildly, reacting to the collapse of the chamber. Michael felt gravity seize him, pulling him downward with terrifying speed. The fog thickened, the world blurred. From behind him, something massive moved along the walls of the chasm, following them downward. Michael tried to look, but the fog swallowed the shapes. A sudden impact knocked the breath out of his chest. He hit the ground hard. Stone, cold, real. Michael gasped, rolling onto his side. Daniel lay next to him, trembling. The shard slipped from Michael's hand and spun across the floor before coming to rest near a faintly glowing circle carved into the stone. Michael crawled toward Daniel, pulling him close, checking his pulse. A faint flicker, weak but present. He looked up. They had fallen into another chamber, but this one was different. This one was built like a cathedral. Massive columns rose into the darkness, carved from bone-like material. At the center of the chamber stood a huge structure resembling an altar. Above it hung a suspended object glowing with soft, cold light. A door, but not a physical one. A door made of pure energy. A gateway. Michael felt his breath catch. This was it. The original door. The one Daniel had vanished through 20 years ago. The one that had created every impossible door after it. And something moved behind it. Something waiting, something patient. Michael stared at the suspended energy door as its glow pulsed like a colossal heartbeat echoing through the ancient cathedral chamber. The cold radiance washed over him, and Daniel in waves that grew stronger with each pulse. The air tasted metallic and heavy, thick enough that each breath scraped the back of his throat. Daniel lay beside him, trembling with flickering instability, his form dissolving and reforming like a candle flame caught in a storm. Michael forced himself to rise, despite the weight pressing on his chest. He stumbled toward his brother and knelt down to lift him gently. Daniel's hollow eyes opened halfway, drifting toward the glowing door hanging above the altar. A faint vibration rippled through his body, as if the door itself were calling to him. Michael felt it too. The cathedral chamber was impossibly vast. Every whisper of movement echoed through the endless rows of skeletal columns. The shadows stretched longer than they should under the cold light. Distant tremors rolled through the floor as though something enormous shifted beneath the stone. Restless in its ancient slumber, Michael swallowed hard, gripping the shard tighter. It pulsed faintly, synchronized with the throbbing glow of the energy door. This connection unsettled him. It meant the two were bound in ways he did not yet understand. But one thing was clear. The door was the origin, and the shard was a fragment of whatever nightmare had flowed through it. A deep rumble resonated from behind the altar, vibrating the entire chamber. Dust drifted from the ceiling in spiraling sheets. Michael stiffened. The sound was not random. It was footsteps, slow, heavy, approaching. He lifted Daniel into his arms with a strained breath and stood. The rumbling grew louder, each step shaking the ground beneath them. Shadows pooled unnaturally between the columns, thickening like living ink. Something enormous waited beyond the veil of darkness. Michael backed toward the altar, forcing his legs to move despite the tremors shaking the chamber. When he reached the ancient stone steps carved into the floor, he set Daniel down gently on the lowest step. His brother's body flickered again, the edges of his form unraveling into threads of darkness before snapping back into place. It was clear that Daniel was being pulled towards something beyond the door, something calling to the part of him that no longer existed in the human world. The footsteps stopped. Silence flooded the chamber, a heavy silence that pressed so tightly against Michael's ears that he could hear the pounding of his own heartbeat. He turned slowly. A massive silhouette stood just beyond the farthest column, tall as the cathedral pillars, broad as a mountain carved from shifting darkness. Its limbs resembled elongated bone draped with writhing smoke. Its hollow eyes glowed faintly, like dying stars from an ancient universe. It stepped forward. Michael stumbled back, pulling Daniel closer. The giant creature's presence crushed the air around it, bending the space as though the realm itself strained to hold its weight. The ground beneath its feet cracked and pulsed with energy. Every movement of the creature rippled the shadows like waves. It leaned forward, studying Michael with silent hunger. A pulse radiated from its hollow sockets, brushing across the chamber like a cold gust of wind. When the pulse reached Daniel, his body convulsed violently. Michael grabbed him instinctively. The shard in his hand flared with a bright pulse to counter the pressure. The massive creature reacted to the shard. Its head snapped downward, hollow eyes narrowing at the glowing fragment. A deep vibration tore through the chamber, shaking stone loose from the ceiling. Michael staggered, but held the shard up defiantly. The creature let out a silent roar that rattled the entire room. Several of the columns cracked under the force, but the shard's glow grew stronger in Michael's hand, pushing back against the entity. The shard's light collided with the creature's presence in a violent shockwave that exploded across the chamber. The energy door above the altar flickered wildly, surging in brightness. Daniel's body jerked upward as though pulled by invisible strings. He rose several inches off the ground before collapsing back down. Gasping silently, Michael reached for him, desperate to stabilize him, but a second shockwave blasted outward. It sent Michael sprawling across the stone floor. The shard flew from his grasp, skidding across the ground and coming to a stop directly beneath the glowing energy door. The creature's massive form surged forward with terrifying speed. Michael lunged for the shard, but the ground beneath him rippled like liquid stone, dragging him backward. He clawed at the floor, pulling himself forward inch by inch. The creature slammed a colossal hand into the stone, blocking his path. Michael rolled desperately to avoid the crush. The impact shattered the floor, sending jagged fragments flying. The creature reached toward the shard, but Daniel moved first. With a violent flicker of unstable energy, Daniel's body shot upward like a streak of white fire. He collided with the creature's arm, disrupting its form. The creature recoiled, its limb dissolving into swirling darkness before reforming. Daniel landed hard on the stone, his body flickering dangerously like a candle on the verge of extinguishing. Michael crawled to him, grabbing his hand. Daniel looked at him with hollow, glowing eyes. Recognition flared through them. Pain, determination, fear. These were the first true emotions Michael had seen on his brother's face since entering the realm. Then Daniel lifted his trembling arm and pointed at the shard. Michael understood. He released Daniel and sprinted toward the altar. The creature lunged after him, its massive hand sweeping across the ground like a falling tree. Michael dove forward, rolling across the stone just as the creature's hand smashed into the floor behind him. He scrambled to his feet and leapt onto the altar steps. The shard pulsed violently under the glowing door, as though resonating with the energy above it. Michael reached out and grabbed it. The entire chamber exploded in light. The pillars shook, the ceiling cracked, the energy door flared wide, expanding into a vortex of swirling, luminous mist. A powerful wind surged through the chamber as though the realm exhaled with ancient force. Daniel rose from the ground as if lifted by invisible currents. The creature roared silently, its form unraveling under the overwhelming brightness. Michael stood on the altar, the shard glowing in his fist like a newborn star. The light from the shard connected with the energy door above him, forming a bright beam that pierced the ceiling of reality itself. Daniel floated toward the beam, his body flickering between human and inhuman shapes. Michael reached for him from the altar, shouting without sound. Daniel looked down, his hollow eyes softening. For the first time in 20 years, Michael saw the brother he remembered. Daniel mouthed a single word, "Stay." Then the vortex above them ruptured. A blinding force ripped Daniel upward with impossible strength, pulling him into the heart of the swirling door. Michael screamed silently, reaching with all his strength, but the force was too violent. His fingers brushed Daniel's hand one last time before the vortex swallowed him whole. The chamber fell silent. The monster dissolved into ash-like shadows. The energy door slowly closed, leaving Michael alone in the ancient cathedral, the glowing shard still trembling in his shaking hand. The silence that followed Daniel's disappearance was more terrifying than the roar of the collapsing realm. It wrapped itself around Michael like a suffocating shroud, thick and cold, settling deep into his bones. He stood frozen on the stone altar, the shard clutched tightly in his trembling hand. Its once brilliant glow had dimmed to a faint pulse. Like the fading heartbeat of something dying, shadows pooled at his feet, stretching across the vast cathedral chamber, as if drawn to the remnants of power within the shard. The energy door above him had sealed completely, leaving behind only a shimmering scar suspended in the air, a reminder of the vortex that had taken Daniel once again. Michael tried to scream, but no sound came out. His chest tightened as the weight of reality crushed him. He had fought his way through the impossible, faced monsters shaped from nightmares, plunged into realms beyond human understanding, only to lose Daniel again at the very moment he almost reached him. He staggered forward, knees buckling as he stepped down from the altar, his hand pressed against the stone floor, which pulsed faintly under his touch. Even now the realm breathed, alive and ancient, watching him with unseen eyes. He pushed himself up slowly, swaying as exhaustion hit him like a wave. The chamber around him flickered, the walls trembled, the pillars groaned like giants exhaling. Cracks spread along the floor, glowing faintly with cold white light. The entire realm felt unstable, as if the energy released by the opening and closing of the door had weakened its structure. Michael wiped the sweat and dust from his face, though his hands shook uncontrollably. His breath came in uneven gasps. He took a step forward. The stone beneath him rippled like disturbed water. A distant rumble echoed through the cathedral. He turned sharply but saw nothing, only endless rows of towering bone pillars disappearing into the shadows. But he felt something, a faint vibration in the air, not a presence of hunger or malice. Like the creatures he had faced before, this one felt different, cold but not hostile, a pressure that brushed against his skin like a whisper. He tightened his grip on the shard, ready for whatever emerged next. The faint vibration swelled, a soft hum filled the chamber, echoing between the columns. The pillars responded, glowing slightly brighter. The hum grew louder, resonating through Michael's bones. He turned toward the center of the room, where the shimmering scar in the air pulsed faintly. The hum came from there, slowly at first, then faster. The scar widened for a fraction of a second, releasing a thin trail of cold mist. Michael's heart pounded. He took a hesitant step forward. A voice slipped through the scar, not spoken aloud. Inside his mind, a single word. Come. Michael stumbled backward, eyes wide. The word echoed like a ripple in the air. It carried Daniel's tone, his cadence, his fear, his plea. Michael blinked, unable to process what he had just felt. Then it came again, softer, fainter. Come back, Daniel. Michael ran toward the scar, reaching up as if he could pry open the shimmering tear. But the scar did not react. The glowing outlines simply pulsed, fading with every beat. Michael raised the shard toward it, hoping the fragment could somehow reconnect the door. The shard flickered weakly. A spark leapt from its tip and struck the scar. The scar brightened slightly. Michael's pulse quickened. He pressed the shard against it. The chamber reacted instantly. A violent shockwave rippled outward, throwing Michael off his feet. He crashed onto the stone floor with a sharp cry. The shard clattered several feet away, spinning until it settled in the glowing floor crack. The scar pulsed uncontrollably, flashing with bursts of white light. The air grew heavier, thick with ancient pressure. Michael pushed himself up slowly, groaning as pain radiated through his ribs. The cathedral trembled. The bone pillars shook violently, as though the entire structure were being pulled between two realities. The glowing symbols carved into their surfaces flared bright enough to sting Michael's eyes. The floor cracked open beneath several pillars, releasing bursts of cold fog. Stone fragments rained from the ceiling like falling stars. Michael shielded his head and struggled to rise. He crawled toward the shard, reaching for it desperately before his fingers touched it. The floor split beneath the altar. A deep chasm opened, wide enough to swallow the entire platform. From its depths rose a cold wind that carried whispers. Dozens, hundreds, all layered over one another, some crying, some pleading, some laughing, a chorus of voices stolen by the realm across centuries. Michael's skin crawled. The chasm pulsed with pale light. Something moved in the darkness below. Something enormous, something aware. The whispers merged into a single waveform of sound. A presence pressed upward from the pit, bending the air around it. The glowing scar flickered violently, reacting to the presence. Michael backed away, dragging himself across the cracking floor. The presence pushed harder, and a jagged shape began to rise through the chasm. A hand, long, skeletal, pale as frost. Its fingers stretched impossibly far, each joint bending backward before snapping into place. It gripped the edges of the chasm, pulling upward. The arm that followed was wrapped in swirling darkness that oozed like liquid shadow. A torso emerged next, then a head with no eyes, and a mouth that stretched open into a hollow void. It was not the creature from before. It was something far older, a fragment of the realm's true form. The original entity, the master of the door. Michael froze as the towering figure rose fully from the chasm, standing taller than any pillar in the cathedral. Its presence pressed down on him like gravitational force, crushing the air from his lungs. His hands trembled violently. The creature turned its hollow face toward him. The shadows behind it shifted, forming faint silhouettes of people who had been consumed by the realm. Michael's pulse thundered. The creature stepped forward. The entire cathedral bowed under its weight. Michael reached for the shard, fingers grazing its cold surface. It pulsed weakly. The creature let out a deep rumble that shook the chamber. The chasm widened behind it, cold mist swirling upward like a cyclone. The creature lifted one elongated arm. Its hand opened. Inside its palm glowed a faint shape. A human silhouette. Daniel, but not in body, in memory. a fragment of him extracted by the realm. Michael's eyes filled with horror and rage. His hand closed around the shard. It flared with sudden brilliance, reacting to the creature's presence. The creature paused. The glow from its palm dimmed. The silhouettes in its shadowy form flickered. Michael stood despite the pain tearing through him. He raised the shard with shaking arms. For the first time since entering the realm, he spoke aloud. "Give him back." The creature moved. The cathedral exploded into light, and the world shattered like glass. Michael felt the world tear apart around him as the explosion of light swallowed the ancient cathedral in a violent storm of brilliance. The force threw him backward, as though an unseen hand had ripped the ground from beneath his feet. He hit the floor with bone-crushing impact, skidding across the cold stone until his body collided against one of the trembling pillars. His lungs struggled to draw air, every breath coated with dust and shimmering particles that rained from the cracking ceiling. The shard remained clenched in his hand, still glowing fiercely with a cold, pale flame that burned without heat. The giant primordial creature towering before him recoiled under the shard's radiance, its massive elongated arms bending in unnatural arcs as it drew back, hollow void-like eyes shrinking as though stung by light it had not encountered in ages. The cathedral shuddered violently. Entire pillars split like rotten bone. Stone fragments plummeted from above and dissolved into cold vapor before hitting the floor. A deep echo rolled through the chamber, a thunderous rumble that vibrated through Michael's ribs and made his vision blur. He pushed himself up, gripping the shard with both hands. The creature loomed above him once more, its skeletal form twisting, its surface shifting like layers of a live shadow peeling away and reforming. From deep within its chest cavity, a chorus of voices rose, not spoken but felt, crawling into Michael's mind. They were whispers of terror, agony, despair, all trapped for centuries within the beast. Their emotions clawed at him like desperate hands trying to pull him into the abyss of the creature's past. Michael forced himself to stand despite the suffocating pressure. His legs shook uncontrollably. The ground beneath his feet pulsated like a massive heartbeat. He raised the shard higher, its glow spreading outward like ripples of icy moonlight. The creature halted mid-step, its skeletal mouth stretched open in a wide, silent scream. The cathedral trembled, as if the entire dimension recognized the shard's authority. Michael felt something shift inside the shard, a fragment of understanding, a faint echo of Daniel's presence. His brother's essence lingered inside the shard, woven into its cold, luminescent core, calling out to him, guiding him. Michael stepped toward the creature, not running, not trembling, moving with the resolve of someone who had lost everything and refused to leave without reclaiming what remained. The creature responded by lowering its massive head. Its hollow eyes collapsed inward like collapsing stars, revealing swirling pits of darkness that spiraled deeper than any physical space. The air grew colder. Frost formed on the stone floor, cracking with each of Michael's steps. Shadows extended from the creature, reaching like ghostly tendrils. They slid along the ground toward Michael, coiling and twisting, preparing to constrict him. The shard flared in his hand. The tendrils recoiled instantly. A shrill vibration tore through the air. The creature's entire torso rippled. The silhouettes trapped within its shadow body flickered violently, some stretching their spectral limbs forward as if begging for release, others twisting in torment, as if trying to flee deeper into the darkness. Michael felt a lump rise in his throat. Those were souls, echoes, people who had touched the door and never returned, people the realm had consumed. A single voice floated among them. Michael, Daniel's voice. Clear, faint, but real. Michael's resolve hardened. He lifted the shard infused with his brother's essence and pointed it toward the creature's chest. A stream of pale light shot forward, piercing the layers of darkness wrapped around its body. The light carved a crack through the creature's chest cavity, splitting the swirling shadows apart. The trapped silhouette screamed silently as the crack expanded, a blinding glow leaking from the creature's core. The beast staggered backward, slamming into one of the bone pillars with such force that it shattered into shards of dust. The ground convulsed. The chasm behind the creature widened, spewing cold mist and spiraling winds that whipped around the cathedral. Michael stood firm against the violent currents, the shard anchoring him like a lifeline. He took another step forward, channeling every ounce of strength into the light. The creature thrashed wildly, its limbs flailing in massive arcs. Its massive hand slammed down inches from Michael, cracking the stone floor. Michael pushed forward. The crack along the creature's chest grew deeper. A shape glowed from within, a human silhouette. Daniel, not his physical form, but the remaining memory of him, imprisoned in the core of the creature. Michael's heart ached. His brother was fused into the realm, trapped inside its heart, hidden behind the facade of monstrous limbs and shadow mass. The shard vibrated violently, its light intensified, resonating with Daniel's presence. The creature roared again, lashing out with all its strength. One massive limb swung toward Michael with the intention of crushing him. He dove aside at the last second. Stone shattered where he had stood, the force blasting debris in every direction. Michael slid across the floor, scrambling to stand. His body ached. Blood dripped from his elbow, but he ignored it. He raised the shard once again. The creature lunged for him at the same time. Their forces collided. A shockwave burst outward. Stone pillars exploded into dust. The ceiling split open with a deafening crack. The shard's light lanced through the creature's body, piercing its core, ripping through the shadow that bound the imprisoned souls. The silhouettes inside the creature screamed as their forms fractured into beams of light that shot upward into the ceiling. The creature convulsed in agony, its massive form bent backward unnaturally, limbs flailing, shadow peeling away like burning paper. Michael staggered as the shard seared his hand with overwhelming energy. His vision blurred. The entire world shook, but he saw Daniel's shape, inside the glowing crack, and he refused to let go. He thrust the shard deeper into the light. The creature ruptured. Its body tore apart in a vacuum burst of shadow and white flame. The chasm behind it exploded in a cyclone of freezing wind. The cathedral collapsed in a cascade of glowing dust. Michael was thrown violently backward and buried beneath falling debris. Darkness swallowed him. Silence returned, but the shard remained glowing faintly in his hand, and somewhere beneath the ringing in his skull, he could hear Daniel whisper again, "Do not stop." Michael drifted in darkness, weightless and numb, as though the world had folded him into a silent pocket between realms. There was no air, no sound, no sensation except the faint, rhythmic pulse of the shard still clutched in his hand. It glowed weakly through the black void, the only fragment of light in a universe made of shadow. He tried to lift his head, but his body refused to move. His limbs felt distant, detached, as if they belonged to someone else. Time stretched around him without direction. Seconds or hours passed. He could not tell. Then the darkness rippled. A whisper threaded through the void. Neither a sound nor a thought, but something in between. Michael, soft, raw, familiar. Michael strained against the paralysis, desperate to move. Daniel's voice drifted through the black expanse, reaching him like a faint breeze from a forgotten world. He clung to the echo, forcing himself to breathe, to think, to exist. The shard pulsed again, a little brighter this time, as though answering Daniel's call. Light flickered above him, first a single spark, then a thin crack stretching across the darkness. The crack widened slowly, spilling faint cold light onto his motionless form. Michael felt weight return to his limbs. He gasped sharply as sensation flooded back into his body. The darkness peeled away from him, like tar retreating from flame. He pushed himself upright, coughing as though waking from a nightmare that had lasted a lifetime. When his vision cleared, he found himself lying on a vast stone surface that stretched endlessly into the distance. The air here was heavy but breathable, filled with a cold mist that curled along the ground like living smoke. The sky above him was not a sky at all. It was a twisting mass of pale clouds and shifting shadows that swirled together in patterns that defied the laws of nature. Everything felt ancient, suspended between reality and dream. A half-world, a place caught between collapse and rebirth. Michael rose unsteadily, gripping the shard. It flickered like a dying star. The faint whisper of Daniel had vanished, but the echo of it remained inside Michael's chest, a reminder that his brother was not gone. Not yet. Something deep within this fractured dimension still held Daniel's essence. Michael refused to leave until he found him. He stepped forward across the stone plain. The ground pulsed beneath his feet like the slow breath of a colossal creature. Strange fissures crisscrossed the surface, glowing faintly with pale light. Each fissure whispered as he passed, faint voices slipping through the cracks like trapped spirits calling for release. Michael ignored them, focusing on the distant horizon where large obelisks rose from the mist like titanic teeth. Their surfaces shimmered with symbols similar to those carved into the pillars of the cathedral. He felt a pull in that direction, a faint tug from the shard. A resonance. As he moved closer to the obelisks, the mist thickened around him. Shadows swirled within it, darting between the cracks in reality. He tightened his grip on the shard, raising it like a torch to scatter the fog. It illuminated a narrow path that wound between jagged stone formations. Upon entering the passage, he heard faint footsteps behind him. Slow, bare, soft. He turned quickly. Nothing but the mist behind him curled upward like a disturbed animal. Michael quickened his pace. The footsteps followed, faint at first, then louder. Something was walking just out of sight, its movements perfectly synchronized with his. He spun again, shard raised. Darkness shifted at the edge of his vision, melting into the mist. A shape, tall, thin, watching. He felt its gaze press against the back of his skull like icy fingers. "Daniel," he whispered. The shape froze, then vanished. Cold dread rushed through Michael. That was not Daniel. Something else stalked him. Something that had survived the collapse of the cathedral. Perhaps it had crawled out of the abyss before the creature ruptured. Perhaps it had always lived here in this half-world, feeding on lost souls who wandered too close to its territory. The path eventually opened into a massive chamber, carved from stone and shadow. Monumental obelisks encircled the area, arranged in a perfect circle. The mist thinned at the center, revealing a floating platform formed from cracked stone slab. On the platform lay a dim, swirling vortex of pale energy. It pulsed like a dying heartbeat. Michael stepped forward cautiously, feeling a pull from deep within the vortex. Daniel, he could feel him here. The shard vibrated violently in his hand. He lifted it. The vortex reacted immediately. It expanded, brightening, swirling in chaotic spirals. A faint silhouette rose within the light. Michael's breath caught. He moved closer, nearly stumbling as the stone shifted beneath him. Daniel hovered inside the vortex, not his physical form, not his broken creature form. A memory, a fragment of essence searching for a vessel. His face flickered, but held more humanity than Michael had seen since stepping into the cabin. Daniel reached toward him, the same silent plea echoing from the moment he vanished 20 years ago. But something else moved. A shadow detached itself from behind one of the obelisks, taller than a man, its limbs too long. It walked soundlessly toward the platform. Michael's heart hammered as he recognized the silhouette, the creature that had stalked him through the mist. It advanced with eerie grace, its hollow sockets fixed on Daniel's essence in the vortex. Michael stepped between it and the platform, raising the shard. The creature slowed, then charged. Michael thrust the shard forward. A burst of pale light erupted from its tip, colliding with the monster. The creature recoiled, its form rippling like disturbed ink. But it did not fall. It lunged again. Michael dodged, rolling across the stone platform. The creature's claws scraped across the slab, sending a shower of sparks into the air. Daniel's silhouette flickered violently as the realm trembled under the clash. Michael rose to his feet, panting, and aimed another burst of light. The creature staggered, its shadowy form peeled apart in strips, revealing a core of swirling darkness within. It let out a hollow wail, a low vibration that shook Michael's bones. The vortex pulsed rapidly. Daniel's essence trembled. If the creature reached him, the fragment would be consumed forever. Michael knew what he had to do. He raised the shard high above his head. It answered his desperation by glowing brighter than ever before. Energy surged through his arm, through his chest, through the air around him. The entire chamber responded, the obelisks humming in resonance. The creature lunged in one final desperate strike. Michael brought the shard down with all his strength. The platform exploded in a sphere of white radiance. A scream tore through the realm. Then everything went still. The mist parted. The creature was gone. The vortex dimmed, and Daniel's essence hovered silently, waiting. The silence after the blast felt unnatural, like the world itself had paused to study the aftermath of what Michael had done. Dust drifted through the air in slow, shimmering trails, catching the faint glow that leaked from the cracked stone platform. The swirling vortex of pale energy had dimmed to a soft pulse, its light no longer violent or chaotic, but steady, controlled, almost peaceful. Michael stood trembling, breath torn from his lungs, arms quivering from the force of the strike he had delivered. His hand still gripped the shard tightly, its glow reduced to a fragile flicker, as though the immense burst of power had nearly exhausted its ancient reserves. Before him hovered Daniel's essence, a faint silhouette made of shifting white particles that shimmered like frost in moonlight. The figure drifted slightly above the platform, moving with the slow rhythm of someone breathing in a deep dream. For the first time since stepping into this nightmare realm, Daniel looked almost human again. His shoulders held shape, his head tilted with the ghost of curiosity. His eyes, though still hollow, reflected a faint recognition. Michael felt a painful surge of hope bloom inside him. He took a step forward, ignoring the burning pain that laced through his legs. The ground pulsed weakly beneath his feet, reacting to his movement. The realm was wounded. The creature destroyed moments earlier had been a massive anchor in this fractured dimension, and its absence created a gaping void that resonated through the ground like the fading echo of a giant's heartbeat. The air trembled. The sky above flickered erratically, shadows swirling like smoke in a restless storm. Michael raised his free hand toward Daniel's hovering form. His voice cracked as he spoke. "Daniel." The essence flickered. Its shoulders turned slightly. A faint ripple moved across its surface, like a whisper brushing across water. Michael swallowed hard. He did not know if Daniel could hear him, but the connection between them felt stronger than it had in years. He reached his hand closer. The moment his fingers neared the glowing silhouette, the air tightened. A soft vibration rippled outward from Daniel's essence. The shard in Michael's hand pulsed in perfect sync. The two energies recognized each other. They were pieces of the same broken whole. Michael understood now what the shard truly was: a fragment of Daniel's being. being torn away during his fall into the realm 20 years ago. A piece that had kept him tethered to humanity despite the realm's attempts to reshape him. A piece that had allowed Michael to find him again. Michael took another step forward, and the world reacted. The obelisks encircling the chamber flared with sudden, blinding light. Their carved symbols ignited like molten fire. Pulsating rapidly, the ground trembled violently, splitting into jagged fissures that leaked cold mist. The mist surged upward in violent clouds, spiraling around the hovering essence. Michael stumbled, shielding his face with his arm as the wind grew stronger. Something was changing, something the realm did not approve of. Daniel's essence flickered violently, as though torn between two forces, one pulling him toward Michael, the other dragging him deeper into the realm. Michael tightened his grip on the shard and pushed forward against the wind, teeth clenched, determination burning through the fear in his chest. He refused to lose Daniel again. He reached out with both hands this time, the moment he touched the shimmering outline of Daniel's arm. A surge of cold energy shot through his body. Michael gasped, falling to his knees, his vision blurred as the shard vibrated so violently it nearly broke from his grip. Daniel's essence flared bright, blindingly bright, expanding outward in a wave of white fire. The obelisks responded with a thunderous pulse of energy that cracked the stone beneath them. The air resonated with distant whispers, hundreds, thousands, voices rising from the fissures in the ground, chanting with a chilling, rhythmic tone. Michael clutched Daniel's essence tighter. The cold energy did not push him away. Instead, it wrapped around him like a frigid embrace, penetrating his skin, his bones, his thoughts. Images flashed through his mind. Daniel falling through the original door 20 years ago, the realm tearing pieces of him away. Daniel trapped in multiple forms, struggling to hold on to fragments of memory. The creature that had imprisoned him, the countless doors created to lure new souls inside. Then the final image, a door, not one of bone or shadow or glowing obsidian, a wooden door, the original cabin door, the one Michael and Daniel grew up passing by every summer, the one Daniel had feared, the one that had swallowed him whole. Michael gasped as the vision snapped away. He jolted back into the stone chamber. The obelisks cracked one after another, splitting open like broken ribs. Light poured out from their centers in violent bursts. The chamber began collapsing around them. Daniel's essence wrapped around Michael in tendrils of pale mist, lifting him gently from the crumbling ground. Michael felt weightless, pulled upward by Daniel's presence. The shard grew brighter, responding to Daniel's call. The stone platform shattered completely. The ground beneath them fell away into an abyss of swirling black fog. The obelisks toppled like ancient giants, dissolving into dust before they hit the abyss. The realm's sky ruptured, splitting into jagged cracks of brilliant white light. Everything around them shook violently. The entire dimension teetered on the edge of collapse. Daniel's essence wrapped tighter around Michael, carrying him upward. The shard hovered between them, suspended in the air like a glowing heart. Light streamed from it into Daniel's form. The silhouette grew clearer, more defined, more human. Michael felt tears sting his eyes. The cold energy flooding through him began to warm, just slightly, just enough to feel like home. Above them, the sky split open fully, revealing a swirling portal of brilliant white light, a vortex larger than any door he had seen. Its edges pulsed, bending the sky inward as though pressing reality together. Michael felt Daniel's essence push him toward it. The realm roared in fury. Tendrils of shadow shot up from the collapsing abyss, whipping toward them like serpents. Daniel blocked them with bursts of white energy, each collision shaking the air with thunderous force. Michael reached upward, desperate. If the portal closed before they reached it, they would be trapped forever between the collapsing layers of the dimension. Daniel's essence pulled him closer, guiding him through the violent winds. Michael shielded his eyes as the light grew too bright to endure. Just before they reached the portal, Daniel's essence stopped. Michael turned. Daniel hovered inches from him, his form stable, clear, almost whole. The shard floated between them. Daniel reached out. Michael watched, breath trembling, as Daniel placed his hand gently around the shard. The light flared so brilliantly, it erased the entire realm from sight. The last thing Michael felt before everything vanished was Daniel's hand gripping his, and the sense of something speaking softly inside his mind. "I am ready." The world reformed in a violent lurch, as though reality itself inhaled sharply and forced Michael back into existence. He landed hard on wooden floorboards, the impact rattling through his entire body. For a moment he lay still, stunned, blinking rapidly to dispel the blinding afterimage of white light that burned in his vision. His ears rang with a high, thin frequency, like the lingering echo of a distant scream. He pressed his palm against the floor, feeling the familiar texture of old timber beneath his fingers. His mind struggled to comprehend what had just happened. Then he recognized the smell. Dust, pine wood, cold winter air leaking through old cracks. The cabin. He was back inside the cabin. Michael rolled over slowly, pushing himself onto his hands and knees. The room spun around him, but when his vision cleared, the realization hit him with crushing force. He was in the living room of the old forest cabin. The lamp stood in the corner, exactly where it had been. The hallway stretched toward the back of the house. The air was heavy, silent, frozen. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. Michael drew in a shaky breath. For a moment, he believed he was alone. Then he saw it. A faint glow floated just a few feet away. A small sphere of pale white light hovered in the air above the floorboards. It pulsed slowly, rhythmically, like a tired heartbeat. Michael's breath caught. He reached for it instinctively. His fingers trembled as he cupped the light gently in his hands. It hovered weakly, responding to his touch. The surface felt both weightless and solid, like holding a fragment of memory made real. Michael felt a familiar presence within it. Daniel. The essence had followed him back, or perhaps Daniel had led Michael here intentionally. The shard. Michael looked around desperately. The shard was nowhere in sight. Panic surged through him. He searched the floor, moving broken boards, pushing aside dust, checking beneath furniture. Nothing. It was gone. The shard had been consumed in the final burst of light, or fused with Daniel's essence, or lost between the collapsing layers of the realm. He did not know. Fear tightened in his chest. He lifted the small sphere of light closer to his face. The glow flickered softly in response. Inside the swirling whiteness, he thought he saw the faint outline of a figure. Shoulders, arms, a face. For a heartbeat, he saw Daniel's expression. Calm, focused, determined. The image faded, but the presence remained. Michael whispered his brother's name into the heavy air. The light in his hands pulsed. A sudden creak echoed through the cabin. Michael froze. The sound came from the back hallway, from the same place where the impossible door had stood 20 years ago. He turned slowly. The hallway was bathed in deep shadow, darker than it should have been given the dim lamplight. The shadows moved slightly, rippling like waves across black water. The floor creaked again, this time louder, deliberate, as though something took a step toward him from the far end of the corridor. Michael stood carefully, keeping Daniel's essence cupped gently in his hands. His heart pounded in a frantic rhythm. The cabin felt alive again, watching, waiting. The air thickened, pressing against his skin. The shadows deepened, converging into shapes that twisted unnaturally. The corridor stretched longer than before. The walls bent inward. Michael felt his stomach twist. He stepped backward toward the front door, but the cabin reacted. The floorboards trembled beneath his feet. The lamp flickered violently. A cold wind swept through the room, carrying with it a faint whisper that brushed across Michael's ears like a distant voice carried by the forest. He could not make out the words, but the tone made his skin prickle with fear. The whisper grew louder. The shadows in the hallway deepened, condensing into a single tall silhouette. A figure stepped into view. Michael's breath stopped. It was Daniel, or the shape of Daniel. His body was human again, but paler than moonlight. Too still, too smooth. His eyes glowed faintly with the same white pulse as the essence in Michael's hands. He stood motionless in the hallway, his posture unnatural, as though he had been placed in that position rather than choosing it. His face was hollow, expressionless, a fragile mask of what he used to be. Michael felt the essence in his hands tremble violently. Its glow flickered faster. Daniel's figure tilted its head slightly, reacting to the movement. Michael stared in stunned horror. The essence and the figure were connected. Two halves, one present, one incomplete. The creature that had trapped Daniel in its core had separated his being into multiple forms, and now both pieces were here. Daniel's figure stepped forward. His movement was smooth but unnervingly mechanical, like a puppet following commands. His eyes locked onto the essence in Michael's hands. For a moment, Michael thought he saw recognition in them. Then the figure's expression twisted. A low, crackling sound escaped from deep within his throat. The sound of something imitating speech rather than truly speaking. His limbs twitched, his back arched, his fingers fingers curled like claws. Michael backed away. The sphere of light pulsed harder, as if warning him. The figure of Daniel convulsed violently, jerking in unnatural spasms. Something rippled across his skin. Shadows bled outward from his form, dripping onto the floorboards like liquid void. His eyes flickered. White, black, white again. The essence trembled in Michael's hands, reacting to the figure's instability. Pain radiated through Michael's fingers. He winced but refused to drop it. Daniel's essence was fragile. It needed protection. The figure stepped forward again. Then another voice joined the cabin, a familiar voice. Michael. His eyes widened. The whisper came not from the figure. It came from the essence. Daniel's voice spoke softly inside Michael's mind, as clear as it had been before the realm consumed him. That is not me. Michael's blood ran cold. The figure's jaw distended, stretching downward in a grotesque arc. Shadows poured from its mouth. Its eyes went entirely black. Its limbs extended unnaturally, joints bending backward. The illusion of Daniel's body tore apart like wet paper, revealing a dark, grotesque shape beneath the human shell. A creature shaped from memories, a remnant of the realm, a guardian or a hunter. It lunged. Michael ran, clutching Daniel's essence to his chest. He sprinted toward the front door as the creature shrieked with a sound that tore through the cabin like metal scraping bone. The house shuddered violently. Boards cracked. Shadows fell from the walls like liquid night. The creature slammed into the floor behind him, its limbs scraping across the wood with terrifying speed. Michael reached the front door. It did not open. The walls pulsed. The creature screamed, and the cabin began to change. The cabin convulsed like a living organism waking from a deep and furious slumber. Wooden planks rippled beneath Michael's feet as if muscle and sinew flexed beneath a thin layer of skin. The walls expanded and contracted in slow pulses, inhaling darkness and exhaling cold gusts that carried faint whispers. Michael slammed his shoulder against the front door again. It did not move. The wood had fused seamlessly into the frame, as though the cabin had sealed itself shut to prevent any escape. Behind him, the creature shrieked, a guttural screech that shredded the air like jagged glass. Michael turned, clutching Daniel's glowing essence tight against his chest. The creature that had shed Daniel's shell writhed across the warped floor, its limbs bending in unnatural angles, dragging a mass of shifting shadows behind it. Like a cloak of living night. Its body resembled a twisted marionette suspended by invisible strings, snapping and contorting as it crawled toward him. Its face, once disguised as Daniel, had split open into a vertical maw filled with needle-thin tendrils, each one writhing and tasting the air as though searching for the warmth of life. Michael felt an icy shock pulse through his body as the creature screeched again. Daniel's essence trembled violently in his arms, reacting to the creature's presence with terror. Michael backed toward the window. The glass warped, rippling like disturbed water. He raised his elbow and smashed it with all his strength. The window resisted. Glass bent outward like softened metal, refusing to shatter. He hit it again, harder. No break. The cabin tightened around him, its structure mutating with each passing second. The creature lunged, its limbs stretching unnaturally long as it closed the distance between them in seconds. Michael twisted out of the way just in time. One of the tendrils grazed his shoulder, slicing through fabric and skin. Blood welled instantly. The pain burned like ice. He stumbled forward and caught himself against the collapsing wall. The floor lurched beneath him. Boards cracked. A long fissure opened in the center of the room, stretching across the floorboards like a mouth forming from the wooden grain. Cold air rushed upward from the new opening, swirling in spirals as though something massive breathed beneath the house. The creature turned its head sharply toward the widening fissure. Its limbs twitched, then it lunged for Michael again, driven by the essence he held. Michael clutched the glowing sphere tighter. Daniel's voice whispered inside his mind, faint but urgent. "Do not let it take me." Michael pushed himself forward, ignoring the throbbing pain in his shoulder. He dodged another strike from the creature, rolling across the warped floor. The shell of the cabin groaned around them, beams bending into curved shapes resembling rib bones. The ceiling bulged downward as though something immense pressed from above. The shadows along the walls elongated into long, skeletal fingers. Michael forced himself upright. The glowing essence within his hands pulsed brighter, illuminating the writhing creature for a split second. The light hit it like fire. The creature recoiled with a pained screech, limbs retracting violently. Michael's eyes widened. The essence had power. A connection Daniel had formed with him had created an unspoken bond and a weapon. Michael raised the light higher. The creature hissed, its entire form trembling as smoke peeled away from its limbs. But the cabin did not allow this moment of defense to last. With a violent jerk, the entire structure shifted. The floor split open further, the fissure widening like jaws unhinging. A deep, resonant hum grew beneath them, vibrating through Michael's bones. Something stirred in the darkness below. Michael looked down and felt his stomach twist. A massive, swirling void churned within the widening gap underneath the cabin. A vortex, a remnant doorway, a wound between realms. The creature screeched again, drawn to the void, then snapped its head back toward Michael. It wanted Daniel's essence. It wanted to bring him back into the broken realm. Michael took several steps back. The floor pitched violently. He nearly lost his balance. The creature lunged again. This time he raised the glowing essence high and thrust it toward the creature with both hands. A burst of white energy erupted from Daniel's essence, rippling outward in a shockwave that tore across the cabin. The creature screamed in agony as its form disintegrated at the edges. Tendrils of shadow peeled away from its limbs. It staggered backward, its body twitching violently, as if fighting against the purifying force binding Daniel's soul. The ceiling above them cracked wide open. Cold moonlight poured into the cabin. For a moment, Michael saw the forest outside through the split roof. Tall pines, a night sky swallowed in stars. The world he had left behind, the world he fought to bring Daniel back to. His heart surged with hope. But then the forest began to warp. The treetops bent inward. The night sky darkened unnaturally, stars blinking out one by one. The moon pulsed with a strange haze. The forest bowed toward the cabin as if pulled by invisible strings. Reality outside the cabin was bending. The realm was bleeding through. Michael realized the collapse of the dimension had torn open a ripple in the real world. Something ancient was trying to push through. The creature lunged again, this time with the fury of a cornered predator. It leapt across the room in a blur of shadow and tendrils. Michael braced himself. He raised Daniel's essence and unleashed another burst of light. The explosion rocked the cabin, shattering beams and blowing apart floorboards. The creature shrieked in panic as its form dissolved further, but it still clung to life, driven by a force older than hunger. It struck Michael with its remaining limb, knocking him across the room. He skidded across the broken floor and hit the wall hard. The essence rolled from his grasp. It floated a few inches off the ground. Flickering frantically, Michael reached for it desperately. The creature screamed and lunged for the essence. In that exact moment, the cabin floor split fully open. The creature and the essence were suspended above the swirling black void beneath the collapsing cabin. Wind roared upward. Shadows ripped from the walls. Light spiraled downward into the abyss. The creature stretched its limbs desperately toward the essence. The essence pulsed in fear. Michael dragged himself across the breaking floor, crawling, reaching with all the strength he had left. Daniel's voice echoed again. "Michael, take me." Michael leapt forward with everything left in him. He closed his hand around the essence. The creature shrieked in rage, and the void beneath them erupted. The eruption of the void tore the world open in a violent rush of wind and collapsing reality. The cabin convulsed with a deafening roar, as if the ground itself were being ripped apart from beneath Michael's feet. Shards of broken floorboards snapped upward, spinning through the air like jagged shrapnel. A cyclone of black mist surged from the abyss, swallowing everything in its path with a hunger older than time. Michael felt the force seize him, dragging him toward the yawning darkness beneath the collapsing cabin. But he clung to Daniel's essence with both hands, holding it against his chest as if it were the last warm fragment of existence left in the universe. The creature lunged through the swirling chaos, its form unraveling and reforming in frantic spasms. Tendrils whipped through the air, grasping for the glowing essence clutched in Michael's arms. The void's pull distorted the creature's body further, stretching its limbs impossibly long, thinning its torso into a snake-like coil, its maw widening into a screaming chasm of shadow. Its screech tore through the cabin like a blade of sound, vibrating the wooden beams until they splintered. The creature was desperate. It needed Daniel. It needed the last piece of the soul it had once claimed. Michael's muscles burned as the upward pull of the void threatened to drag him over the edge. He dug his fingers into the fractured wood, gripping it until his knuckles turned white and his skin tore. The cold wind roared past his ears. Daniel's essence pulsed violently, flickering with fear. Michael felt the echo of his brother's voice whispering inside his skull again. "Do not let go, not this time." The words sharpened Michael's resolve. With a burst of adrenaline, he pulled himself back from the edge of the abyss, sliding across the tilting floor as the cabin groaned and bent inward like a collapsing lung. Behind him, the creature shrieked and lashed out. A tendril struck his leg, wrapping around his ankle with crushing force. Pain shot up his spine. Michael screamed wordlessly and kicked wildly, trying to break free. The creature pulled, dragging him toward the void with relentless strength. The floor beneath his hands cracked, splintering into pieces that fell into the swirling darkness below. Michael felt his grip slipping. The cold grasp of the void tightened around his legs, pulling him downward. The shadows coiled around him like serpents. Daniel's essence flared. A shock of white light burst from Michael's chest, blasting outward in a ring of cold energy. The force struck the creature with violent impact, peeling chunks of shadow from its limbs and face. The tendril around Michael's ankle dissolved into mist. He rolled away from the fissure, gasping for breath. The creature recoiled with a distorted howl, its form flickering like a candle flame in a storm. For the first time, it looked weakened, shaken, unstable, but the void reacted as well. The swirling black maw beneath the cabin expanded, ripping through the remaining foundation beams. The walls collapsed inward, bending like melting steel. The ceiling buckled. The pines outside bent toward the cabin unnaturally, as if gravity were shifting sideways. The moon fractured into 3 pale shards that twisted slowly in the sky. Reality trembled. The realm was bleeding into the world. If Michael failed here, everything would be consumed. Michael pushed himself onto his knees, clutching Daniel's essence tighter. The glow dimmed, then brightened again, struggling as if fighting against the pull of 2 worlds. Michael whispered his brother's name. The light in his hands pulsed in reply. The essence lifted slightly from his palms, floating in the air as though gaining strength from the collapse around them. Michael stared at it with a mixture of awe and fear. Something inside the essence shifted. A shape emerged. A face. Daniel's face. Eyes closed. Expression calm. Then the cabin roared again. The creature hurled itself forward in a final furious strike, its limbs snapping like blades through the collapsing air. Michael raised his arm out of pure instinct, shielding the essence with his body. The creature's shadow limbs crashed down on him with crushing weight, forcing him against the fractured floor. He felt the bones in his side scream with pressure. The creature pressed closer, its hollow maw inches from his face. Its breath was cold enough to freeze thought. The swirling void behind it expanded, threatening to swallow everything. But Daniel's essence reacted again. The sphere of light expanded rapidly, growing larger and brighter until it lit the entire cabin with a cold, celestial glow. The creature froze mid-strike. Its limbs twitched, its maw trembled. The essence pulsed once more. Then a voice echoed through the cabin, clearer than any whisper from before. "Michael, hold on to me." He did. The glowing sphere expanded into a massive burst of pure white energy. The shockwave tore through the cabin, shattering what remained of the walls and roof. The creature wailed in agony as its form disintegrated completely, dissolving into strips of shadow that were ripped apart by the light. The swirling void screamed as the blast sliced through it, shrinking it rapidly until it collapsed into nothingness. The cabin exploded outward, wood splintered, shadows dissolved. The floor beneath Michael gave way entirely. He fell into the light, not into darkness, not into the realm, into something else. A place between, weightless, silent, cold. He floated through a vast expanse of white fog, clutching Daniel's essence as it wrapped around him like a protective cocoon. Light swirled beneath him, shifting like waves across an unseen ocean. Shapes drifted slowly through the fog, human shapes, silhouettes, faces he did not recognize, souls lost to the realm, watching, waiting. The light around Michael pulsed one final time and carried him upward through the endless fog. When the world finally reformed, he found himself lying in the snow outside the cabin. Real snow, real cold, real world. The cabin stood behind him, broken but intact. Its roof split and its walls collapsed partially inward. The impossible door was gone. The shadows were gone. The cabin breathed no more. It was only wood again. Michael held Daniel's essence in his hands. It pulsed softly. Alive, waiting. Snow drifted around Michael in slow, silent spirals as he knelt before the ruined cabin, clutching Daniel's glowing essence in his hands. The cold wind carried the scent of pine and winter frost, a sharp reminder that he had returned to the real world. Yet the forest felt wrong, too quiet, too still, as if the land itself were holding its breath, watching him, waiting to see whether he had truly escaped the realm or whether something had followed him back. Michael's breath fogged in the frigid night air as he rose to his feet, scanning the tree line with pounding caution. The pines stood like sentinels, their branches sagging beneath the weight of fresh snow. No movement, no sound, only the whisper of wind weaving through branches. Daniel's essence pulsed softly in his hands. The light within it flickered in steady rhythm, like the faint beat of a heart recovering from a long and violent nightmare. Michael felt warmth spread faintly through his palms. The presence inside the essence stirred gently, as though awakening from deep sleep. A faint whisper brushed against Michael's mind. "I am here." Michael swallowed hard. Relief flooded through him, so powerful it nearly buckled his knees. He held the essence against his chest, allowing himself a moment to breathe, to feel the impossible reality that Daniel was still with him, not lost, not consumed, held within the fragile glow that beat gently in his hands. But the moment did not last. The snow beneath Michael trembled, a vibration so subtle he might have missed it, if not for the silence that blanketed the forest. He froze. The vibration grew stronger. A dull thudding rippled through the ground as if something enormous moved beneath the layers of packed earth and frost. Michael's pulse quickened. The cabin behind him creaked, its broken structure shuddering under some unseen force. The pines swayed, though the wind had gone still. Daniel's essence pulsed sharply, warning. Michael backed away from the ruined cabin. The snow shifted in unpredictable patterns, small cracks spider-webbed across the frozen ground. Something moved beneath, slow, deliberate, ancient. The realm's collapse should have ended its reach, but perhaps the tear between worlds had not fully sealed. Perhaps something else had slipped through the void before it closed. The ground ruptured. Snow exploded upward in a violent burst. Michael shielded Daniel's essence as he fell backward into the drift. A massive shape surged from beneath the earth, tearing a deep gash in the soil. Shadow and smoke spiraled upward from the hole, twisting together into a towering form that scraped the low-hanging branches of the pines. Michael scrambled to his feet, stumbling backward through the snow. A creature emerged from the hole, not the same as the one he had faced in the cabin, not the titan from the cathedral. This one was smaller, but still monstrous. A predator shaped from fractured echoes of the realm. Its limbs were long and arched, each bone like blackened ivory. Its torso bent unnaturally forward, ribs protruding from its sides like jagged spears. Its head was featureless at first, a smooth void. Then two white holes tore open where its eyes should have been. Glowing with cold hunger, it let out a low rumble that vibrated the air around them. Michael staggered back, clutching Daniel's essence in one hand and grabbing a broken branch from the snow with the other. He held the branch out as if it could offer protection. The creature stepped forward. Its weight cracked the frozen earth. Snow fell from the trees in heavy clumps. Its breath drifted from its hollow face in icy waves, freezing the air around it. Michael raised the essence. Daniel's light pulsed violently, projecting a thin beam of pale glow across the snow. The creature recoiled slightly, its limbs twitching, but it did not fall back, not like the shadow beasts inside the realm. This one was different, half anchored in this world, half pulled from the collapsing remnants of the dimension behind it. Michael took a step back. The creature matched him, its movements unnervingly smooth. He felt its gaze pierce him, searching him, sensing the glow in his hand. Daniel whispered inside his mind again, "Do not run." Michael froze, his heart hammered. The creature lunged. He dove aside, rolling through cold powder as the creature's claws slashed downward, carving deep trenches into the snow where he had stood. Michael scrambled to his feet and sprinted toward the forest edge. The creature roared and charged after him, moving with terrifying speed despite its unnatural shape. Trees whipped past Michael as he ran deeper into the woods. Branches clawed at his clothes. Snow flew beneath his boots in frantic sprays. Behind him, the creature crashed through the pines, splintering trunks with its elongated limbs. Michael heard its breath, cold and hollow, chilling the very air in his lungs. Daniel's essence flickered, urging Michael to keep moving. He dodged between trees, leaping over fallen logs, sliding down a shallow embankment. The creature pursued relentlessly, its limbs scraping the earth with sharp cracks. Michael reached a narrow ravine carved by winter melt. He leaped across. Snow slipped beneath his boots, and he nearly fell. The creature followed without hesitation, vaulting the gap with horrifying fluidity. Michael stumbled into a clearing where the moonlight spilled across the snow in pale sheets. The forest seemed to hold its breath, watching the chase unfold. He turned to face the creature. He raised Daniel's essence high, allowing its glow to intensify. The creature slowed. Its limbs trembled. Its hollow eyes widened. Shadows rippled beneath its skin. Michael felt Daniel's presence swell inside the essence. The light grew brighter, stronger, more focused. The creature screeched, stumbling backward. Snow spiraled around it as though caught in a hurricane. Michael stepped forward, using the essence as a shield. Then his foot caught on something buried beneath the snow. He fell hard. The light dimmed. The creature lunged. Michael gripped the essence tightly and rolled out of the way just in time as the creature's claws slashed downward, tearing a deep gouge in the earth. Michael struggled to stand, but his body shook with exhaustion. He backed toward a fallen tree while the creature twisted, preparing to strike again. Daniel's voice echoed sharply within the essence. "Michael, open it." Michael blinked. "What? Open it?" The essence pulsed violently. Michael understood. He wrapped both hands around the sphere and pulled. The surface resisted for a moment. Then it split open along a thin, glowing seam. Light poured out in a brilliant wave that illuminated the forest with cold radiance. The creature shrieked and lunged desperately toward the light. Too late, a beam of pure white energy shot upward from the cracked essence, tearing through the night sky like a lightning bolt. Michael held the sphere with trembling hands as the beam widened, spreading outward into a dome of shimmering light. The creature hit the dome. Its body spasmed violently. Its limbs cracked. Its torso twisted as the light ate through its shadow flesh. It convulsed once, twice, then dissolved into ash that scattered across the snow like black dust carried by wind. The beam faded, the dome dimmed. Daniel's essence hovered in Michael's hands, small, quiet, but still alive. Michael collapsed to his knees in the clearing, snow falling gently around him as the forest finally exhaled. He was not done, but he had survived. For now, Michael remained on his knees in the clearing as snow drifted quietly through the air, settling over the dark ashes that marked the creature's dissolution. His lungs heaved with cold air, each breath sharp enough to cut Daniel's essence hovered above his palms in a dim and fragile glow, its once brilliant light now reduced to a flickering heartbeat. The forest around him stood eerily still, the kind of stillness that seeped into the bones and made the world feel hollow. Pine branches sagged under the moonlit frost. The clearing's edges faded into blackness, as though the trees themselves refused to witness what had just happened. Michael stared at the glowing sphere, trembling with both exhaustion and dread. The beam of light he had released had destroyed the creature, but it had taken something from Daniel in the process. The essence felt thinner, weaker, like a candle running out of wax. Michael whispered Daniel's name with a voice barely more than breath. The essence shivered in response, its faint light flickering in a slow, rhythmic pattern. A whisper brushed against his mind, weak, strained. "I am here." Michael lowered his head, relief flooding his chest in an aching wave. But the whisper carried something else, urgency, fear. Before he could respond, the ground beneath him trembled with a deep groan that made the snow jump in tiny ripples. The trees creaked as though pushed by a sudden invisible force. The tremor spread outward, shaking the clearing like the heartbeat of something enormous waking beneath the earth. Michael clutched Daniel's essence protectively and staggered to his feet. A cold wind swept through the forest, spiraling the fallen ash into the air. The air grew heavier with each passing second, thickening into an oppressive weight that pressed into Michael's chest. The moon above flickered, as though something enormous passed between it and the earth for the briefest moment. Michael stared upward, uneasy. The sky itself felt wrong, as if something in the realm he had escaped was still pulling at this world, searching for a piece left behind. A faint hum drifted through the forest. Not wind, not breath, a vibration, the same pitch he had heard in the cathedral before the great creature awoke. Michael backed away instinctively, heart pounding. The snow beneath his boots trembled with increasing intensity. The vibration grew louder, deeper, resonating through the clearing. Daniel's essence pulsed rapidly in warning. The trees shuddered. The ground cracked slightly beneath Michael's feet. He turned slowly toward the source of the hum. The forest parted, not by wind, by movement. A line of trees swayed and bent outward as something approached, something moving through the woods with slow, deliberate strides. Snow shook loose from branches, frost sprayed into the air. Michael tightened his grip on Daniel's essence and stepped back toward the fallen log. The glow from the essence flickered erratically, as if responding to the approaching presence. Between the trees, a tall silhouette appeared, then another beside it, then a third. Michael's breath caught painfully in his throat. Humanoid shapes, but not human. They were tall and thin, each towering twice his height, with limbs that hung at unnatural angles. Their bodies were made of shifting shadow and faint cold light, like silhouettes carved from the realm itself. Their heads were smooth and featureless, except for two glowing lines where eyes should be. They walked slowly, silently, their movements unnervingly synchronized. Michael stumbled back further. Daniel's essence whispered weakly, "They followed us." Michael's pulse hammered as three of the shadow figures stepped into the moonlight. Their bodies pulsed in faint rhythm, echoing the same energy he had seen in the cathedral's guardians. They did not move with hunger like the creature before. They moved with purpose. He recognized them, the wardens, beings that existed to contain the realm, to maintain its borders, to retrieve whatever escaped. 3 wardens stopped at the edge of the clearing, their glowing eyes locked on the essence in Michael's hand. One stepped forward. The air pressure tightened instantly, crushing against Michael's chest. He staggered but did not fall. Snow spiraled around the figure in small cyclones, drawn into its aura. The warden raised a long, emaciated arm, its fingers extending like sharpened icicles toward the glowing sphere. Daniel's essence pulsed in terror, shrinking closer to Michael's chest. Michael raised his free arm in defiance. "Stay away," his voice cracked. The warden froze, its head tilted, as if considering his resistance. The hum deepened, vibrating through the snow and spreading outward like ripples across a frozen lake. The clearing flashed with faint pulses of white light, like the heartbeat of the collapsing realm echoing across dimensions. The wardens did not advance. They waited, watching, judging. Daniel's whisper returned. "Do not run. They are not here for you." Michael felt cold fear coil in his stomach. "Then who?" The essence dimmed. "Me." Michael's breath shook violently. The wardens stepped forward in perfect unison, closing the distance by several inches. In their hands, they carried faint, shimmering chains made of light and shadow intertwined. Michael felt the blood drain from his face. They had come to reclaim Daniel, to pull him back into the realm permanently, to finish what the creature had failed to do. "No." Michael stepped further back. His boots slid across the ice. The wardens stopped again, tilting their heads slightly as though recalculating. The forest went silent. Not a single breeze, not a single creak, only the soft and steady pulse of Daniel's essence. Michael whispered fiercely, "I will not let them take you." Daniel's whisper brushed across his mind once more. "Michael, listen, I cannot stay like this. The realm is collapsing. I am connected to it. This form cannot exist here for long. If I stay too long, I will destroy everything around us." The wardens approached slowly, the chains shimmering with cold light. Michael stepped in front of Daniel's essence, shielding it with his body. "You are not going back." Daniel's voice trembled. "I am not going back. I am becoming something else, something between worlds, but I cannot become it here." The wardens closed in. The hum intensified. Snow cracked beneath their feet. Daniel's essence glowed brighter, expanding slightly as his voice steadied. "Michael, take me to the place it began." Michael froze. "The cabin." The wardens stopped moving. The essence pulsed strongly in his hands. "Take me to the door." The pressure in the air changed. The wardens stepped aside, clearing a narrow path toward the cabin ruins. They did not retreat. They followed, watching, ensuring. Michael hesitated until Daniel whispered again, gentle but firm, "I trust you." Michael nodded, breath shaking, and carried the fragile essence back through the clearing as the wardens moved silently behind him like towering sentinels carved from shadow. The cabin waited ahead, broken, hollow, silent. but not finished. Not yet. Snow crunched beneath Michael's boots as he stepped into the ruined threshold of the cabin, carrying Daniel's fragile essence cupped carefully in his palms. The cold wind pushed through the shattered walls like a breath from another world, scattering loose flakes of frost across the fractured floorboards. Behind him, the wardens followed in absolute silence, their towering silhouettes gliding over the snow without leaving a single footprint. Their presence warped the air with each step, bending moonlight into thin ribbons that twisted between the trees. Michael refused to look back at them. Every instinct screamed that they were not enemies, but neither were they allies. They were function, purpose, the manifestation of rules that governed realms far older than humanity. And right now their purpose revolved around Daniel. Michael stepped over a collapsed beam and moved toward the center of the ruined cabin, the place where the impossible door had once appeared 20 years ago. The floor there was cracked open in a wide spiral pattern, like the broken remains of a vortex that had burned itself into the wood. Snow dusted its edges. Cold mist seeped through the cracks. The air above it hummed faintly, responding to the pulsing glow in Michael's hands. Daniel's essence warmed in his palms, its fragile light growing more stable with every step he took toward the spiral. He knelt slowly before the fractured pattern and held the essence over the center point. A faint stream of cold air rose from the spiral, swirling around the essence as though welcoming a missing piece of something ancient. Michael felt Daniel's presence deepen too, more clear, more awake. Daniel's voice whispered inside his thoughts again, no longer strained or fading. Here, this is where it began, and where it must end. Michael swallowed hard. His throat felt raw. The cabin groaned softly under some unseen weight. The wardens formed a silent semicircle behind him, looming at the edges of the broken floor, their glowing slit eyes fixed on Daniel's essence with quiet, reverent intensity. The atmosphere thickened, pressing in on Michael like the closing grip of a clenched fist. Snowflakes drifted downward in slow motion as the space around the spiral warped gently, bending inward as if preparing for something monumental. Michael steadied his breath and whispered, "What happens now?" Daniel's presence pulsed softly in reply. "I cannot become whole here. I cannot remain as I am, but I can change. I can choose. This time it does not control me. This time I shape my own form." Michael's heart pounded painfully in his chest. He clutched the essence tighter. "And what about me? What happens to us?" A ripple of warmth spread through the glow in his palms. "Michaels, you brought me back. You broke the realm. You saved what was left of me. I will not leave you with nothing." Before Michael could respond, the spiral in the floor ignited with a cold white light. Lines carved in the ancient wood pulsed one by one, spreading outward like veins awakened by forgotten power. The glow deepened until the entire cabin flickered between worlds, half real, half spectral. The wardens stepped back slowly, lowering their heads in solemn acknowledgement. Michael felt the ground tremble beneath him. A rising pressure grew in the air, thick enough to choke. Daniel's essence flared brightly, expanding until its glow reached the ceiling rafters. Then the essence slipped from Michael's hands. It rose from his palms and drifted upward, spinning slowly as tiny shards of light peeled away from its surface like falling petals. Michael stood and reached instinctively, but Daniel's voice stopped him gently. "Let me go." "Not away, just forward." The essence expanded further. What had once been a small sphere began to stretch into a tall, elegant shape. Shoulders formed, then arms, then a head. Daniel's silhouette hovered above the spiral like a figure being sculpted from pure starlight. Michael's breath caught in his throat. His knees threatened to give out. The Daniel he saw now was neither human nor creature. He was something between, something transcendent, a being woven from memory and light and choice. The spiral beneath him cracked open further, revealing a swirling void of pale mist instead of shadow. A soft hum vibrated upward, echoing through the cabin beams. Snow froze in midair. The wardens bowed their heads. Daniel's form steadied. His face emerged from the light, features sharp and clear. His eyes were not hollow anymore. They glowed with depth, resolve, humanity. Michael choked on his own breath. Daniel raised one luminous hand and placed it gently against Michael's shoulder. Though the touch was cold, it held the weight of familiarity. "Michael, you saved me, but saving does not always mean returning to how things were. The world between worlds chose me, and I chose it back." Michael's voice trembled. "I do not want to lose you again." Daniel shook his head slowly. "You are not losing me. I am becoming something I was always meant to be, something that can exist beyond the boundaries that trapped me." The spiral below them erupted with a sudden gust of wind. Light shot upward, swallowing Daniel's form in a brilliant column. The wardens stepped aside, giving the rising light space. Michael staggered backward, shielding himself from the radiance with his arm. Daniel's outline grew clearer within the beam, sharper, more defined. Then his voice echoed one final time inside Michael's thoughts. "I will always be with you, not trapped, not taken, chosen." The beam burst outward in a shockwave of pale brilliance that lit the entire forest. As if a second moon had risen from the earth, snow blasted outward in swirling spirals. The cabin surged with power and then fell still. When the light faded, Daniel's form was gone. The spiral sealed shut. The floor quieted. The hum ceased. The wardens bowed silently toward the now dormant spiral. Then, one by one, they stepped backward into the shadows, dissolving into the forest as though swallowed by the night. Michael remained alone in the ruined cabin, surrounded by falling flakes of silent snow. In his hands lay a single object, a small shard of white crystal, warm, alive. Daniel's final gift. Michael clutched it to his chest and closed his eyes as snow filled the cabin again. Daniel was gone, but not lost, and something new waited for him in the quiet of the winter forest. Snow continued to fall in slow, weightless endless spirals as Michael stood alone in the silent remains of the cabin, holding the warm white shard against his chest. The slightest hum vibrated through the crystal, faint but steady, like a distant heartbeat trying to anchor itself in a world it no longer belonged to. Michael stared at the cracked floor where Daniel had risen moments earlier, half expecting the spiral to glow again, or for Daniel's luminous form to return. But the cabin remained still, quiet, drained of all unnatural presence except for the soft pulse within the shard. The wardens were gone. Daniel was gone, yet the forest felt far from safe. Michael stepped away from the center of the room and exhaled shakily. His breath curled in the cold air like pale smoke. The shadows clinging to the walls no longer writhed. As living things, they settled back into ordinary darkness. Even the oppressive pressure he had felt since returning to the real world had lifted slightly, but something lingered. Not a presence, a memory embedded in the air itself. Michael brushed snow from his jacket and walked toward the cabin's shattered entrance. Moonlight spilled through the broken structure, casting long beams across the snow. Outside, the forest stretched in moonlit stillness. The pines swayed in a soft breeze. Snow blanketed the ground in unbroken layers, except where footprints trailed through it. His footprints. The wardens had left no mark. The creature that had chased him left only deep gouges and patches of disturbed earth. Michael walked out into the clearing and tilted his head upward toward the fractured moon. Its pale glow felt less ominous now, more distant. The forest breathed again. Michael turned the shard in his hand. Light shimmered within it, swirling slowly like mist inside glass. "Daniel," he whispered softly, not expecting an answer, but a faint whisper brushed the edge of his consciousness. Michael, weak, gentle, warm. Relief washed over him. Daniel was still there, not bound to flesh or forced into monstrous form, but something else, something freer. Michael lowered himself into the snow, leaning against a fallen log. Exhaustion crashed over him in waves. His body ached. His bones throbbed. Weeks of fear and running and impossible terror hit him all at once. He closed his eyes, but sleep refused to come. Every time he tried to drift into unconsciousness, flashes of the realm tore into his mind. The cathedral of bone pillars, the shadow titan rising from the chasm, Daniel's flickering form trapped between layers of reality, the cabin walls twisting like muscle, the void churning beneath the floor. He forced himself to breathe slowly. After a long moment, the shard pulsed softly in his hand. Michael opened his eyes. Daniel's voice brushed against his thoughts again. "You are not safe yet." Michael straightened instantly. "What do you mean?" The shard warmed in his hand. "The tear is closing, but not fully. The realm is collapsing from the inside. Things are escaping through the cracks." The cold wind shifted. Snow drifted sideways. A faint tremor rippled through the ground beneath Michael's boots, like the echo of a distant footstep. Michael rose to his feet, heart pounding. The forest darkened slightly as a cloud passed over the fractured moon. Daniel continued, "You must leave this place." "Tisa." Now, Michael hesitated. He turned toward the ruined cabin, despite everything it had taken from him. This place held the last memory of his childhood with Daniel, the place where he had lost him, and now, where he had found him again in another form. Leaving it felt like abandoning a grave. Daniel's whisper softened. "I am not here anymore. Not in that wood. Not in that room. The world is bigger than this place, and I want you to live in it." The shard pulsed with gentle warmth, comforting him. Something rustled in the trees. Michael spun, gripping the shard tightly. A silhouette moved between the pines. Tall, angular, not a warden. He took a step back. The figure paused. Then another silhouette appeared behind it. Then a third. Micah's breath caught. These shapes were smaller than wardens, more scattered, more frantic, as if pulled from the realm without form or purpose. Daniel whispered urgently, "Go! They do not belong in this world." Michael backed away. The shapes crept forward, moving in jagged lurches. Their limbs twitched, their outlines flickered. They were unstable. Remnants, broken pieces of the collapsing realm, creatures that had slipped through before the tear sealed. They made no sound, no growl, no hiss, but the cold around them thickened like a living force. Michael turned and ran. Branches whipped past him as he sprinted through the forest. Snow crunched underfoot. The remnants followed, their movements stuttering like broken shadows. Daniel's voice guided him through the trees, left, down the ridge, across the stream. Michael followed every whispered direction without hesitation. He burst from the woods onto an old trail he recognized faintly from childhood hikes. His lungs burned, his legs trembled, but he kept running. The remnants closed in behind him. One lunged. Michael lifted the shard instinctively. A flash of pale light burst outward. The creature recoiled, twitching violently, its form dissolving slightly as though the light peeled its edges away. Michael ran harder. The trail twisted and dipped. He stumbled over roots, caught himself on frozen brush, forced his legs to move even when they screamed to stop. The remnants glided across the snow with unnatural speed. They gained on him. Daniel's whisper cut through the wind, toward the lights. Michael looked up. Through the trees he saw them, faint yellow glows in the distance. Headlights, a road, civilization, safety, or something like it. Michael sprinted with the last of his strength. The remnants lunged again, their shadow bodies convulsing as they pushed to reach him. Michael clutched the shard to his chest. Light pulsed in frantic waves. He burst through the tree line and stumbled onto an old forest road just as a truck rounded the bend, its headlights washing him in blinding white. He waved frantically. The truck screeched to a stop. A man climbed out in shock, shouting something Michael could not hear. Behind him, the remnants hovered at the edge of the trees, unable to cross the threshold into the road's light. Daniel whispered, "You made it." Michael collapsed to his knees in the snow, breath shaking. The man rushed toward him, but Michael's eyes were fixed on the forest. The remnants slowly withdrew, melting into the darkness like ghosts returning to the world they should never have left. The shard pulsed gently in his hand, alive, watching, waiting, and the chilling truth settled into Michael's bones. The door was gone. The cabin was broken, but cracks between worlds remained, and something told him this was only the beginning.